Boom.
Yeah. All right, boom. I just hit the go live button, so I think we're good. We're live. What is going on, everybody? It's Randall Ford 19, the man with the million, back again with another Xbox 2 podcast. And with me, as always, my co-host, Jez Corden of Windows Central. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, man. Not so bad. Been a busy couple of weeks. Apologize for missing the podcast twice in a row. But we managed to pull it out and get one going on Saturday at least. That's something, right? That
is definitely something. Yeah. Make sure you guys let us know if we sound good. We haven't done this in a bit, and I had to change to Streamlabs OBS, and I had to change some settings around, so let me know if it sounds all good. But yeah, we're sorry that we missed last week. Jez, you pretty much couldn't do it any day, right?
Yeah, I was pretty slammed last week. It was hardcore, but things are letting up a bit now. So hopefully I won't miss one for a while at least.
Yeah, because we people really get upset when we don't do the show. So
yeah. Just work has to come first. Remember, this is a hobby. Unless we start some kind of Patreon and get like 50 bajillion patrons who can make me quit my job so I can just podcast 24/7, that'd be great. But fortunately, this work comes first.
Work always does come first, though. So, but you did want to make an announcement on the podcast. Basically, Thursdays are no good, no more. Like they no longer work for you. So essentially, we're going to be going back to Wednesdays, which is what we originally started on, right?
Yeah, Wednesdays don't work for me either, but I'm going to try. They work for me slightly better than Thursdays. So we'll try and make it work.
We'll try to make it work, yeah. Okay. So we'll be moving the podcast to Wednesdays. That's when we're recording. If we can't do Wednesdays, then we'll obviously, we'll do the show on a Friday or whatever. But so that's like this week it was rough. Jez couldn't do Thursday because of work, and then he couldn't do Friday because, his girlfriend wouldn't let him because it was Valentine's Day, right?
Well, I thought I'd be a good boy and do a Valentine's thing. I didn't even play any games on Friday. Have you been playing any games lately besides World of Warcraft? Because I know you always are playing World of Warcraft. But new raids here, new dungeons, new raids, and new gear to grind. So it's just how it is when you play World of Warcraft. But I actually have been playing games other than World of Warcraft, which is interesting.
Right. So
have you been playing games?
Yeah, of course. So we're going to talk about that. But obviously, for those of you listening later on, SoundCloud or Google Play or iTunes or Spotify, nothing's going to change on that end. When we do the show on Wednesdays, Jez will just upload it like normal. It'll be up either Wednesday night or Thursday. So, if you guys don't want to listen to this live on YouTube, you can always check it out later. We do have a whole bunch of topics here to discuss since we missed last week. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at this stuff here. We have Rod Fergusson leaving the coalition. We have Phil's interview with the Gamertag Radio guys for their 1000th episode, which he dropped a lot of information. Phil saying also, hey, you know what? Sony and Nintendo aren't a competition anymore. PlayStation 5 having pricing problems, apparently. And what does that mean for Xbox Series X? I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that we need to get into. But before we do that, obviously, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. So if you're here already, we appreciate everybody here. And make sure you guys hit the like button and share this out, because Google does a pretty horrible job about it. Like, I put out my video yesterday, Jez, right? So Google, on YouTube, you subscribe to a channel, and then it'll put it in your subscription box when someone uploads, a new video, right? But then there's the notification bell, which if someone's notified, they're supposed to, like, Google's supposed to send out a notification, like an email notification to that person to be like, hey, this person has a new video out. So I have a burner YouTube account that I am subscribed to my own YouTube channel to see if it actually sends out notifications, right, on my videos. And when I put out my video yesterday, I didn't get a notification until 20 minutes later. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit.
Well, Google does try and filter fake news, and maybe it thinks your podcast is fake news, man.
Maybe it does. And shout out to Gunstar for the super chat. It says, check my super generous super chat. I am, and thank you very much. So let's get into the topics. I did see your Bleeding Edge tweet, so I know you've been playing that. So why don't you tell me and everybody else a little bit about Bleeding Edge? And before anybody asks, the game that is currently being played right now on screen is, of course, Zombie Army 4. So enjoy that. And then a little bit later, I think I also have some footage from Hyperdot in there. So, enjoy the footage too. So, how's Bleeding Edge, Jez?
Well, first of all, have you been playing it at all? It's currently in closed beta for people who are on the Xbox Game Pass subscription service. It's almost like a paid beta in a way, but like an added benefit of being on Game Pass. Sometimes you get better access to things. But have you tried it at all?
I mean, I played it in the closed alpha. I have not played the new version yet, so I really can't speak on it. I will say, though, when I played it in the closed alpha, I thought it was even a well-made game back then. Like, it seemed incredibly polished. I'm not sure the game's for me whatsoever.
Yeah, I think, even now, I think the game won't be for everyone. It's just but then again, games like MOBAs often aren't for everyone, those sorts of games. But I will say that I'm impressed with, I don't know, it's subtle what they've done to improve the game. So I think they've done some things like tweak the time to kill and tweak some of the things like the stun locks and stuff like that. Like the combat feels like it flows a lot better than it did last time I played it. So I played the guitar dude who can spam lightning everywhere, and he's supposed to chase people down and disrupt them and stun them and stuff like that. And also played the healing snake dude who's got a cyborg snake, and he runs around casting AoE heals and putting shields on people and stuff like that. And I was having a blast, man. I played for about a couple of hours earlier. It's in beta over the weekend, I believe. They'll probably extend it. They usually extend these kind of betas. It was a little bit laggy sometimes. I would have expected, considering it's Microsoft and stuff, to have gone full-blown dedicated service for the game. But I guess it's still on the sort of lower budget sort of tier, I guess, if you want to call it that. They're probably not putting as much resources into it as some of their other big games. So I'm not sure if it actually has full-blown dedicated servers or not. But I was getting some lag every now and then. It wasn't game-breaking. But I was having a lot of fun with it. I really was. And they've added some of the I don't know what you call it, the bells and whistles, the kill cams are in, and end of match screens, telling people who's got MVP and who got the most healing done and stuff like that. It feels more of a game than it did last time I played it. So I'm surprisingly optimistic about it now. Before I was kind of I'm not expecting this game to blow up. I'm still not expecting the game to blow up and take the world by storm or anything like that. But I think it'd be a really nice addition for Game Pass users, and the fact that it's got cross-play and it's coming to Steam as well, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's on PC and all that sort of stuff. I think it could surprise people. I think it could do better than people expect.
I think it'll definitely. I think it'll definitely find its audience.
I think so. Yeah.
Do you think?
Better than Battle that way.
Right. Do you think maybe, because when I see people play it and I think it looks good, and I think it's a well-made game, but I know from playing it myself, it's not the type of game that I'm going to basically invest any time into, right? I do wonder if by pricing the game at $30, even though it's in Game Pass, if maybe this game would have been better served if it was a free-to-play game. And everybody could have been able to play it. But I know free-to-play games don't make sense for Microsoft at this point because they have Game Pass. I kind of get that vibe when I watch it. I'm maybe this game would be a little bit more successful and reach more people if it was just free-to-play.
Yeah, I think they could have made this game at least free with Game Pass. It could have been a good experiment as a game that you get as part of being on Game Pass, even if it wasn't full-blown free-to-play. I actually think this could have worked as a free-to-play game. like there's loads of ways they can put skins in the game. Like there's already there's a skin section that's like coming soon, so like they haven't added any skins yet, but like you can customize your hoverboards, which are like the mounts in the game, similar to like paladins and stuff like that. And there's like you can't buy any of the power-ups and stuff like that. Like you have to earn them in game, which is like a good thing. In fact, there's no microtransactions at all in the game. You have to earn everything in game. So I don't know what I'm saying that for. It's so funny that I just expected there to be microtransactions in my head, but there isn't. There isn't any microtransactions.
Well, they said there wouldn't be any at launch. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably add some down the line, like premium skins and stuff like that. But I don't mind as long as they like fund ongoing development. I think Overwatch has done a good job of providing value on the skins and, dare I say, loot boxes. You know, the debate, it's up for debate, but I think like they added so many free heroes, they added so many free maps, and I bought a few loot boxes, but like what, not that many. So like the amount of content that I got on the back of everything that Overwatch has done, I thought was a pretty good business model. And there's no pay to win, so I don't personally mind that. But you know, people debate and they can argue about whether that's good value or not.
Right.
But yeah, I'm actually like optimistic now. I was worried that this game would like sort of crash and burn, no one would care about it or remember it soon after launch. But I don't know. I'm optimistic about it now. Well, before I tell you what else I've been playing, you tell us one of the games you've been playing.
All right, so gotta give a shout out to Aaron for the super chat. He says that would be a big ball move if Phil said Xbox Series X $400. I mean, yeah, I'd agree with that, but I don't think $400 is in the cards for Series X. But obviously, one of the games I've been playing is up on screen. Zombie Army 4, which I think I saw you tweeted that you really like this game as well.
Yeah, I've been playing it too. Like, I like a lot of those sort of I suppose you could call them Left 4 Dead likes, right?
Yes.
Like, in a world where Valve has basically stopped making games except for like Half-Life VR or whatever. Like, they've stopped making like, I don't know, normal games, I guess you could say. And they like recently debunked some rumors. Like, there was some rumors that they were making Left 4 Dead 3, and then they were just like, oh, actually, no, we're not, sorry. And everyone was like, oh, damn. Well, I think it does a good job of scratching that itch, basically, is what I'm saying.
It's a really good co-op game. It is a fantastic kind of get together with your buddies, turn off your brain, and just kill a bunch of zombies. Don't worry about the story because it's a bunch of gobbledygook. You know what I mean? Hitler's come back from the dead. There's like zombie arm towers and stuff, and don't think too hard about this game because it's pretty basic. And because so I've been playing it with Dealer and with Cold Eastwood and with Zalker, and I think I even played a little bit with Darge Knight as well. But if you kind of think too much about it, the game kind of falls apart really fast because it's the same. There's I think there's 8 levels, and they're kind of grouped together by chapters. But it's literally the same thing each level. You get in there, you kill some zombies, you come to a point where you can't progress anymore, there's a seal on the door. What do you gotta do? You gotta survive a zombie horde, kill them all, and then move on to the next part where what do you gotta do? Survive a zombie horde, kill them all, and then move on to the next point. And what do you gotta do? you kill them all and move on. So it's a game where it's definitely more about just chilling, having a good time with your friends. On the Xbox One X, it does have the option to choose performance or resolution, so it kind of runs closer to 60 frames. But it's a fun game if you want to play. I wouldn't recommend this playing solo whatsoever.
No, it's not a solo game. Although, unlike some other co-op games, the fact that it does have the slow-mo kill cams in solo mode does help it a bit. Like, it's still like those, Sniper Elite slow-mo bullets going through the zombies' brains in slow motion. Obviously, that happens a little bit in multiplayer as well sometimes. But it's on every shot in single player, which is, it's addictive and fun. I like that aspect of the engine. But I did say in my review basically what you said. It does practically nothing to innovate on the genre. Which is I appreciate it's probably kind of hard to think of ways to really innovate on the genre because you know, it is what it is. But I think it kind of like plays up the fact that it is what it is as well, with the whole 80s vibe, like the whole like the UI and stuff. It's all like 80s-ified, and the levels have like 80s style posters for like 80s movies and stuff. Even the collector's edition, which they sent me, by the way, thanks Rebellion, the box is like damaged like an 80s like VHS box and stuff, which is really cool. So it's not going to blow anyone's minds, I don't think, but it's a pretty fun game.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun game. Like, I was having a good time playing with it. But then, like, I don't know, like, eventually, like, it kind of does wear out. Like, when you kind of just are trying to beat the game, it's just like, you notice kind of the fallbacks they have to go on. But, like, it's always cool getting that, like, headshot where it slows down and it follows the bullet into the brain of the zombie. I don't know, that part of the game is pretty cool, and it runs well. They obviously have a winning formula here, and like you said, there's no Left 4 Dead anymore. So, you know, if you want to play something like this, I mean, this is the only game like it. I will say, though, you know what? I don't know if anybody else agrees with me here. What is it? February 15th, day after Valentine's Day. The beginning of this year sucked. Like, the beginning of this year, especially in comparison to a few years ago, or like even last year, the year before that, the beginning of 2020 for games wise has not been good whatsoever. Like,
it's been a bit. I think that's why I got sucked back into World of Warcraft, because the only like big update that's happened really is World of Warcraft got a new raid in January, and because I had basically nothing else to play, I was just like, okay, I'll do the new raid, and then I got sucked back in. But I agree. There's like not been really anything too amazing.
No, not at all. Like, I'm sitting here waiting for March, patiently waiting for March, so I can play Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and then eventually Doom Eternal, and then April with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Resident Evil 3, and then to cap it all off, end of May, you have The Last of Us 2. But, I mean, it was dry. January, there wasn't anything. February, yeah, a little bit better. You know, you have Zombie Army 4, Darksiders Genesis, and then I think next week is like Vanquish and Bayonetta, but both of those games are games I've already played. Dreams came out on the PlayStation, is getting good reviews. I've had a couple people ask me if I'm going to play that. Here's the thing I have with user-created games. I usually find them boring. Like, not the levels that, like, the people who like Media Molecule is probably going to create a fantastic campaign for Dreams. Problem is, like, I usually find user-created stuff to be very generic and boring. So while I see all the tweets about Dreams on my timeline, and some of it does look really cool, it's like, oh man, someone recreated Skyrim and Minecraft, and oh, look at that, someone did like a full Metal Gear Solid remake and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that looks really impressive, but I'm sure it doesn't actually play very good. So I'm kind of debating in my head whether or not to actually check out Dreams, because I have a feeling I'm just not going to enjoy the user-created stuff.
Yeah, I think, like, again, that's another kind of game where it's probably not for everyone, even if it's, like, super good. I was like, I felt that way about Mario Maker. Like, I loved seeing the stuff that people were making in that game, like the crazy levels that people were making in Mario Maker and stuff, but I saw it on sale and I was like, would I really actually bother playing this? Can I see myself spending time making a Mario level, you know, sharing it and all that sort of stuff and actually making it good? It's kind of like I just kind of don't have time, I guess. So it is what it is.
You just don't have time, huh?
Well, I have time, but playing WoW, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been playing other games though. I'm currently writing a preview of a game called Immortal Realms Vampire Wars. Which this is probably going to be a game that you like, but it's basically like, I'm not going to go into too much, but it's like it's a tactics game where you play as, it's kind of similar to Civilization, but vampire civilizations, and you basically build up a vampire civilization and try and conquer the human realms and stuff like that. And it's got a campaign. It's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it so far, at least. So if you like tactics games, I'll have a preview up for that next week. I also got I also got a key for 2 Point Hospital on Xbox. I haven't actually tried that yet. I tried it on PC, but I'm curious if the controls are going to suck or not on Xbox, because it does feel like a game that would probably handle better with a mouse and keyboard. So I'm probably going to write about that next week too. And finally, we were talking about Left 4 Dead games and how there's not really a lot of them out there these days. Deep Rock Galactic is heading very close towards version 1. It's going to exit game preview pretty soon, I think. It just got a big update recently with like loads of endgame progression systems and loads of polish. Like I played it a little bit at the weekend. Was it last weekend I played it? I was really impressed with like the visuals and how much it improved. And I was in like this crystal cave with all these reflective crystals and stuff. I don't know if you played Deep Rock Galactic.
I did. I actually quite like Deep Rock Galactic, but I mean, it's been in preview for quite some time. I mean,
yeah, they must have some serious investment, because they've been adding tons of stuff, like new biomes, all sorts of new monsters, adding like fairly deep progression systems with quest-based stuff. And for those who don't know, Deep Rock Galactic is kind of like Left 4 Dead, but with aliens, dwarfs, and mining. So like you basically go into these procedurally generated maps that are like deep caves and mines and stuff. And you're like contracted by some comedic space agency to go and get specific minerals and stuff like that. And it's like class-based too. So like there's a guy who excels with drilling through the dirt, and a dude that excels at like, taking out the aliens that'll try to stop you from mining and stuff like that. And they've been updating it fairly consistently over time, and like adding loads of new stuff, end game systems, like I said, and that sort of thing. But like, it's still sort of crippled by this peer-to-peer gameplay, this like peer-to-peer networking stuff, which is really laggy, and it just sort of kills the whole experience for me. Like for me now, like I've sort of become like this snob where I won't play anything unless it has dedicated servers. Unless it has like really good netcode.
That is really snobby, Jez.
Yeah, well, I just hate it, man. I don't know if it's my internet connection is not great or something, but I just like, if it ain't got dedicated servers, half the time I can't have a really good experience. I don't know.
Yeah, I am interested in seeing what that game is going to be like when it does release from game preview, because it was pretty cool when I first played. I think when it came into game preview in 2018. Seems like it's been in there for a long time. They needed a lot to add, because it's like you as you're playing it and you do the different levels, is like, okay, so what am I playing this for anymore? Like, what reason besides just like I'm gonna go and just collect some rocks and escape, so I'd be interested in seeing like the full game. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it leaves soon. We can test it out. Sin Vendetta, he has a question in the super chat. He says, Rand, will you be giving Nioh 2 a try in March? So that's the other big game that's coming out in March, is Nioh 2 from Team Ninja. It's coming out on the PlayStation 4. I haven't played Nioh 1 yet, so I do think Nioh 2 does look interesting. It looks kind of cool, but I would need to play Nioh 1 first. I guess it depends if I can get through Nioh 1 before Nioh 2 comes out. Although I do hear like Nioh 1 is like a 40-hour game, and I don't know if I have time to go through Nioh 1 before that. I do want to play it. Maybe there's the summer, because like once Last of Us 2 comes out in end of May, doesn't seem like there's anything for June, July, or August. And then of course it's the end of the year, and you have like Cyberpunk and Avengers and everything that got delayed, plus all the new consoles. So, I mean, maybe I'll play it at some point. I just don't know if I can get to it between now and when it actually comes out. I think early March. But like, really, I'm focused on Ori. Like, I want Ori 2 like tomorrow. In fact, we should have been playing Ori 2 already, Jez, considering the original release date was February 11th, 2020. We should have been playing it right now, damn it.
Soon, man. Soon. It'll be worth the wait.
Yeah. Well,
soon. What if it comes out and it's like really buggy and broken? How will you feel?
I have faith that it won't be. I don't think it will be.
Callie
Rex says they offered Nioh 1 on PS Plus. Did you not collect it during that month? I don't have PS Plus because I think, for me, and this is just for me speaking personally, I don't play multiplayer games on PlayStation, so there's no reason to buy PlayStation Plus. But I do own Nioh anyways, regardless. That's the thing, like, I don't wait for games to come to PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold. If I want a game, I'll get the game. Whether it's day one or whether it's on sale, I'm not necessarily waiting for a game to come to a subscription service or a sale. Considering all my gaming basically takes place on Xbox, there's no reason for me to ever pay for PlayStation Plus. So... also got to give a shout out to Darge Knight hitting the join button for the channel. Appreciate that very much, Darge. Yeah. So, anything else, Jez? Any other games you've been playing?
I think that's pretty much it. Just looking through my list. I played a bit of Dead Cells. Got a new update. Yeah, Dead Cells. Like, it's pretty old now. I installed Journey to the Savage Planet, but I haven't played it yet. Oh, actually, I played a bit of Darksiders Genesis, which I think it came to Xbox on Friday, I want to say.
Yes. I got the game too, and I want to play it. Tell me it's really good, Jez.
Gameplay is really good. Like, they've really captured the feel of Darksiders and Diablo at the same time without sort of detracting from either, which is really impressive. But when I played it last week, and this is before it actually came out, it might have been patched now, but the performance was awful. It was like on the X, we're looking at like, it was below 4K and below 30 frames per second. Like, the performance is terrible. So I'm hoping that, like, I don't know if there's been an update or something to make it a bit more performant, but I wasn't not impressed with the performance. Hopefully that's something they'll look at if they haven't already. They might have patched it already. I played it last week, but if you like Diablo, if you like Darksiders, check it out because it seems pretty damn fun. But that's pretty much it, man. Other than that, I've just been playing random PC indie games, playing some World of Warcraft, playing some Heroes of the Storm, playing my Blizzard games.
The Blizzard games, yeah. I also actually been playing a lot of a game called Hyperdot.
Hyperdot? What's that?
Which will... it'll be in the video here in the podcast a little bit later because I kind of spliced up the zombie army and Hyperdot. But, so it's this game where it's, you're in like a circle and you're a dot. Right? Wow. Like Hyperdot. And your goal is to basically survive other shapes coming at you, right? In patterns or waves. And and there's 100 levels, and obviously each level gets more and more difficult to survive. And the whole goal is basically you just kind of like go in and out of, the safe spaces trying to make it to the end. And I actually really enjoyed it. So it's like super cheap. I think it's like $5. Obviously, wait for the video because it'll be coming towards, I think, like 30 minutes from now. Because I think I had an hour footage of Zombie Army. But I really like the game. I finished it. It gets pretty tough, so there's a nice little challenge there at the end. And I think it was made by one guy. So, that's the thing. Like, I love indie games, but a lot of the indie games lately haven't been very good. So I don't like talking about them. But if there's a game that I really do like, I obviously highlight on the podcast and throw up some video for it. But yeah, it was a pretty cool game. I quite enjoy it. But that's what we've been playing. We're going to move on to the topics. And since we missed last week, I figured we'll start off with one that kind of took everybody by surprise last week. Rod Fergusson has left the coalition, Jez. No longer working on Gears of War. Poached by Mike Ybarra from Blizzard. Of course, that's not confirmed. That's just my speculation, considering Mike is in a high position at Blizzard. Suddenly, hey, we need someone to oversee the Diablo franchise. Hey, Rod Fergusson, I see you shipped Gears 5, and we're about to start on your next project. You maybe want to move? Come over to, Irving, California?
Irving, yeah.
Yeah, so what does that mean for Gears, Jez? What do you like? Is Gears left rudderless? Like, what's the deal with Rod leaving Gears of War and the Coalition?
I mean, obviously we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and we can only speculate on things like, did Mike poach Rod and stuff like that. But I think like if I was leading the Gears franchise, and Blizzard asked me if I wanted to lead the Diablo franchise, I would probably just say yes as well. And Diablo is like slightly bigger than Gears, so you got to presume that he's getting a pay rise, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Diablo is like, it's a huge game, it's a huge franchise. It's still got a ridiculous amount of monthly active users, despite the fact that it only gets like these sort of thin seasonal content updates, which aren't, in my opinion, they're not very impressive. People still love playing it though. The combat is super satisfying, and and the fact that it's still been going after all these years. And Diablo 3 launched a long time ago now, and it's still got a very passionate, active player base. And I think that the Diablo 4 trailer reveal, like the cinematic, is one of my favorite, cinematic reveals ever. Like that cinematic with Lilith and the demons.
That was a pretty good cinematic. I agree with you there. That was a really good trailer.
Incredible. I think like Blizzard has a lot to answer for lately, and I think like if you're a sort of challenge oriented kind of person, joining Blizzard as it is right now is probably like pretty extreme challenge. What does it mean for Gears though? I think we've talked about Gears before on the show and how we both sort of thought that it could do with a break, or it could do with something fresh, or change the direction. Like, I think like Gears 5 was like a step in the right direction, but like it didn't go far enough for me. Like, it was just a really solid game, fun game, but nothing mind-blowing again. And I really think Microsoft wants Gears to be at that sort of Halo level someday. I personally think that, like, the amount they invest in the franchise and stuff like that, I think they want Gears to be up there. And I think for that, maybe it's probably a good thing that they can get a fresh perspective on it. Like maybe they can either promote someone internally from the coalition, or maybe hire from outside. Poach someone from another company, like someone from Rockstar or something like that, and deliver on what fans deserve, I guess. It's like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I've been saying for a while, as much as I enjoyed the Gears 5's campaign, I don't care for the multiplayer. I haven't cared for the multiplayer for a long time. So I'm looking at this as for a person who really isn't a part of the Gears community, who doesn't care for the multiplayer. I think maybe, he's been doing Gears for a long time. A good portion of his life. Now, he may just felt, you know what? I want to do something different. Like, here we are, we're about to start, we ended Gears 5, we're doing the DLC, we got all the stuff in the plan. Now we're in maybe pre-production of a next game. Are we doing a new IP? Or are we doing Gears 6? Maybe he's like, you know what? The studio wanted to make Gears 6, and he's just like, I've had enough of this. Mike comes in with a good offer to join Blizzard, take over Diablo, new location, revitalize some excitement, all that stuff, a fresh new challenge, because he's known as like a fixer in the industry. Remember, he originally left Epic to join 2K to get BioShock Infinite out of development hell that it was in, to actually ship that game, remember? So maybe it's one of those things. Maybe Diablo's in a bad state. Maybe Diablo 4, maybe this says more about Diablo than it does Xbox. Well,
there has been these rumors that Diablo 4 has been rebooted, and that it like had this sort of lack of direction and stuff like that. Maybe they have literally brought Rod in to execute, and I wouldn't be surprised if like Blizzard lacks some of that authority, maybe in some ways lately. I don't know. Like I think like since what's his name now? The CEO of Blizzard left last year. I've forgotten his name for some reason, even though I've written about him 1,000 times. But the CEO of Blizzard left last year. Blizzard currently doesn't have a CEO; it just has a president, which is like sort of a step down in terms of authority, and he'll have targets and stuff like that. I feel like the CEO, who's one of the founding members of Blizzard, he was the kind of person who'd like maybe stand up to some of the corporate BS that we often see happening at a Blizzard, like Warcraft 3 Reforged, launched in a completely unfinished state, missing like promised content. Like they were advertising it on the site even after the game launched that it would have like these remastered cutscenes, but they just weren't there. So that was frustrating. Oh, that's another game I've been playing, by the way. Warcraft 3 Reforged, which should be called just Warcraft 3 Reskinned, because they haven't really added anything to it.
Yeah, it got user bombed at Metacritic, right?
The lowest score in the lowest user score in Metacritic history.
Yeah. Well, so Emperor Zergi says Rod said his favorite game is Diablo, so it was a no-brainer. And P. Diddy in the Super Chat says, can Gears get a complete overhaul like God of War?
Now, that's like kind of where I'm at. That's like kind of what I'm hoping they can do for Gears of War now. Is to like bring someone in who's got like a strong vision for what it can be, the potential of the game. Because I've always felt like it's been hamstrung by the past, and like trying to sort of marry the vision with what it used to be with what it potentially could be, or what it needs to be in this sort of modern era, like to get it up to that sort of God of War sort of level. And I think Gears has a potential to do that, but it needs maybe a fresh perspective. Because Rod's been working on Gears for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, like, I do agree with you that I think it is beholden to the mechanics of the franchise, right? Gears characters have to move a certain way. The guns have to fire a certain way. They talked about how, like, hey, we added these open world elements, but even when playing it the first time through, which I incredibly was impressed with the campaign of Gears 5. Like, I loved it. You could tell it was just like, it was like 1 foot into the pool of these open world elements, but not 2 feet in. And maybe someone else, a new creative director, a new studio head, was like, all right, let's go all the way. Like, let's kind of really turn Gears into something different. Because, I don't know, to me, Gears is a franchise that kind of needs a reboot. And I'm not saying they need to reboot it with 6, right? Like, because Gears 6 needs to come out. It needs to finish the trilogy, or whatever you want to call it, wrap up the storyline. Because I think in this current format, I think Gears doesn't really have a lot of gas left in the tank. Yeah. And every time I go online and I look about the multiplayer side of it, which I don't care about, it definitely seems like the Coalition and the multiplayer like people are fighting each other. They're always at odds. Like, Coalition does something, and then the community says, no, this was bad. Like, I don't know if you saw the latest update where they were gonna like increase some of the XP multiplayer gains for some of the modes, but they essentially nerfed. Like, it made it like, there's no reason to play Horde on the highest difficulty now, because you get the same XP as playing it on the beginner difficulty. So they like screwed over people who play Escape and Horde. And so like the Coalition were like, oh, sorry, like we'll change it back. It definitely seems that like there's this disconnect between what the Coalition is trying to do with Gears and what the community wants Gears to be. And I just wonder if it's just, maybe it's time to just, okay, finish Gears 6, and then yeah,
it feels like it's spinning in the mud. Because like if you keep trying to add things and then the community forces you to take them away all the time, like what have you actually been doing with all that time? You know, you can't just like, they should instead of tweaking stuff, they should just focus on adding content. Like give me a reason to play Horde mode that isn't just grinding, you know. Like add new bosses or add new stuff, and you know, add new mechanics to it. Like I feel like the Gears team they're not really running a live service in the way that I would want to see it. Like I often I can't help but compare it to Monster Hunter World, which is getting new monsters constantly, getting new armor sets constantly, even getting new story elements constantly, all for free. And what's Gears getting? A bunch of paid skins, Like you have to grind and these stupid beacons. I don't even know.
No, I mean, so Master Jazz says, like you said, you don't like Gears multiplayer, where you say it's kind of irrelevant. That's true, and I mean, there probably is no way that's ever going to get the Gears multiplayer. And I'm not. All I'm saying is I notice what people are saying on social media. Like I see Coalition changing things, and I see the community going against the backlash. I'm more talking about Gears as the stuff I care about, the campaign. Like Obi-Wan says in chat, it was a pinky toe in the open world, which it was. I want them to go fully into that, embrace that change, and make Gears. You can still have it be Gears, but like bigger, like I don't know, embrace more of the open world, the RPG elements of it. Obviously, I've said it before on this podcast. What I really want is I want the Coalition to shelve Gears for now. Work on something brand new, like, hey, work on Perfect Dark. Bring back Perfect Dark, do third person. You're not really beholden to any of the mechanics of Gears, and see what you can do, and then go back to Gears and do that, and then work on Perfect Dark. But I don't think that's happening, because honestly, I think Perfect Dark is being made by the Initiative. But I mean, I hold out hope. That that Gears can, I don't know, find that what's the word I'm looking for? Like that reignite, and maybe like Rod leaving is a good thing, because that's going to maybe promote somebody from within or from without who's going to be like, okay, this is what we need to do to make Gears fresh again. So to get people who dropped the franchise back when it ended in Gears 3 back in 2012 to actually want to play it again. Because some of the criticisms before was that it played it too safe. And even though a lot of people had some good things to say about Gears 5, like myself, because I thought it was a fantastic game, a lot of people are still turned off by the multiplayer aspect, and it's like the same old Gears. So maybe you get someone else on the outside coming in, looking at it and be like, okay, this is what we need to do, this is what the changes we need to make Gears of War a juggernaut franchise again. But that's just me talking about it. Now, when I say this, I also say, you know what? There was that talk about Cliffy coming back. Jazz, remember? on social media. Would you want Cliffy B to come back to Gears?
Well, talk about Cliffy coming back. He said, "Can I come back?" Basically,
that is true. But I mean, not.
He said, like, you know what my phone number is, or something like that. Like, I don't think Microsoft are gonna call Cliffy B.
No,
like,
I think.
So.
I think Cliffy B does not fit in with the corporate environment they want to promote. Is what I'm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think they. Yeah. Maybe they call him because he wants to consult. So basically, he wants to give him some advice and get paid for it. He doesn't actually want to, head up the Coalition and be full time again. But he just was like, here's my ideas. Now, where's my check for $100,000? You know what I mean? Which isn't gonna happen. But Gunstar, he says Gears needs to go off planet, take the fight to them. Albert says Gears and Halo work best as trilogies. Sagas tend to mean you make things up as you go along, probably why Halo 5 campaign suffered. And Sovereign says that the Gears characters, animations, and physics need to be dynamic and reactionary to the surrounding environments. They're too stiff and one-dimensional. So we'll have to say, like, it was a shock that he left. I was not expecting Rod to leave.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it.
So, we'll have to see. Number one, I'm kind of curious to see if they promote internally. Someone at the Coalition suddenly now becomes studio head, or if they bring in somebody from the outside, like you mentioned, maybe someone from Rockstar. I mean, there was some rumors because the day before, I believe 2K announced that Dan Houser was leaving Rockstar North, right?
Yeah, that was strange.
And then Rod Fergusson leaves. So there was like, well, wait a minute, is Dan Houser, like, is he joining the Coalition? Which would be ridiculous, and I don't think it was going to happen because Dan Houser is a legend. Can you
imagine?
And that would be a big step down for Dan Houser, going from like vice president of Rockstar, whatever, to studio head of the Coalition. You want to talk about a step down?
The price is right.
I guess the price is right.
Pocketbook and I don't know, because like presumably presumably that Phil's known for a while that Rob was leaving. Maybe Phil was just like, you know what, I'm gonna whip my pocketbook out and get some Dan Houser on the field. You know, I don't know. That's the thing about Microsoft. You never know. You never know how much spend on any given thing because they've got that kind of cash flow.
Yeah. So P Diddy has a question for you, Jez. He says, "Are you hearing any whispers of new studios?"
No, I haven't. I haven't really been digging for. Thing is, right? I'll tell you what's going on in my life right now. Is Windows Central was purchased by Future, which is a big publisher in the UK, and there's been a lot of changes and sort of, I don't know what you call it, corporate stuff going on. So like training and learning new systems and new people coming in and stuff like that. So I've sort of like, my job's been sort of crazy at the moment, and I haven't really been doing some of the more journalistic stuff, sort of been organizing things and that sort of stuff. But like it's almost all finished now, so hopefully I can start getting back to doing what I do best, which is leaking stuff. But that's why I've sort of been, I don't know, struggling to keep up with the podcast and stuff, because I've just been so busy with all this other stuff. It's frustrating, but it's what happens when your small indie company gets bought by a big conglomerate.
Yeah, Jez, I expect the leaks to start coming in fast and furious. I mean, GDC is like a month away.
Yeah, GDC is coming. It
means like full specs of Series X, Lockhart, PS5. I mean,
hey, maybe.
If Microsoft and Sony don't reveal that stuff soon, I mean, the developers pretty much will leak it at GDC.
Yeah. You never know what I've got cooking. You
never know. Lockhart, you still, what's going on with Lockhart? Still kind of just one of those things that people talk about, but isn't really real yet. Like
Lockhart's so intriguing. Like just on the pure basis that I have no idea, like what's going on there. It's really interesting. Like I want to say that like it's just some sort of weird myth that Microsoft made up to manipulate the narrative around pricing or something. I don't know. Wouldn't that be funny? If Microsoft just like seeded this sort of fake thing so they could like screw with, because that's one of the things Sony said about the PlayStation was basically they're taking a wait and see approach to the pricing of the PS5.
Yeah.
And obviously Lockhart is gonna, if Lockhart does actually come out and it is like this sort of lower powered version, presumably that's gonna sort of have an impact on what the Xbox Series X is priced like. So like it's all crazy. Like everything's sort of intermixed and intermingling. You don't know what's going on.
So before we talk about that, because that's obviously a huge topic, I want to talk to you about Platinum Games, Jez. They want Scalebound back. They want their baby back. What do you think, man?
Microsoft should give it back.
You think Microsoft should get? You think Phil should be like, no problem, cut us a check and here's Scalebound back?
I think Microsoft should just give it them back. If Microsoft doesn't want to make it, just give it back to them. I think like Microsoft will probably have reservations about that, given the fact that they've invested a lot of money to build up the brand name and stuff like that, and they'll be giving all of that away. But I think like if Platinum can sort of demonstrate that it's got a plan for Scalebound, and they can demonstrate that they'll commit to it 100%. I want to believe there's a world where Scalebound could work, could happen, and come back, because it looked pretty cool to me. Riding on dragons with your friends and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. But it's probably just one of them things that's probably nice to think about. That probably won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like Phil selling them the game back on the condition. Because I'm thinking, all right, maybe they don't want Scalebound ever to actually come back, because maybe that looks bad on Microsoft because they had to cancel the game. And if Platinum Games finishes it, does that maybe speaks really negatively towards Xbox. But then it's kind of like, okay, if you sell it back to them on the condition that Scalebound's exclusive for a year, or you sell it back to them and be like, by the way, we can do this. if all your games come to Xbox day one. You kind of tag some stipulations to the sale of Scalebound back to them, because a lot of Platinum games tend to skip Xbox, at least for a year or so. But if you're trying to change that, be like, yeah, make Scalebound, and if we sell it back to you, it's got to be exclusive to Xbox for X amount of months, and your future games, if not published by Nintendo or Sony, they have to be on Xbox. Phil could look at it and be like, okay, that'd be a win for us, because we'll get their games and all that stuff, and Scalebound will be an exclusive. But yeah, I doubt something will happen with that. Let's see, what do we?
It's also just the case. The whole like Platinum games not coming to Xbox. It's just a case of Xbox being dead in Japan.
Yeah, that is
which
true.
Is something Phil spoke about on
the Gamertag Radio. Yep. Did you like? So, what did you think about his interview with the Gamertag Radio? I mean, he did say a lot of stuff.
I haven't listened to it yet, man.
Well, I mean, he said that their position in Japan was unacceptable.
Yeah.
And that they
was that his words? Unacceptable?
Yeah. The position in Japan was unacceptable. He cringes every single time a big game skips the platform. He wants to buy a studio from that area. He talked about VR, how he hopes VR becomes so huge that the Xbox, it's a no-brainer for them to support, but that he just wants customers to know that, you don't buy Series X with the idea that VR is going to be there day one, because it won't be. Yeah. I don't know. It was a really good interview, and I recommend you guys check it out. Phil talked about the future of Xbox.
The Gamertag Radio guys, they're good dudes.
Yeah. He talked about how they were going to be bold with Series X and other reveals, Jez, and how some of it will work and some of it won't, which I thought was really interesting. How they were going to try to do things differently this time around and not be meek, but be bold. I do wonder what he means by, like, some of it will land and some of it won't. Like, how does an announcement not land?
The price.
Ooh, the price. Does it come back to this whole thing with the PlayStation 5 and the price and everything? Oh, man.
I think these systems are going to be pretty chunky. I think they're going to be pretty expensive. And I think, like, when they talk about boldness, they're probably talking about selling something that is more expensive than the typical games console, maybe. I mean, what else could it possibly mean?
Yeah. Well, first I got to give a shout out to Kid Smooth, one of my favorite Xbox content creators out there on YouTube. He doesn't like Platinum games, and and his super chat says, "Fuck Platinum. Xbox should give Scalebound to an Xbox Game Studios to make." Yeah, Kid doesn't like. Kid does not like Platinum games whatsoever.
Wonder why.
Yeah. So yeah, the price. We got to talk about this. Bloomberg article kind of dropped the bomb, didn't they, huh?
Yep, Bloomberg out of the blue last week, or well, this week, technically, I guess. They dropped a bombshell news report that Sony's struggling to supply the parts for some of the memory caching system for the SSDs or something? If I remember right.
The DRAM and like the NAND or something like that? Like they're
something like that.
But the thing is, okay, if Sony's having a problem getting those because of a lot of the cell phone manufacturers are also trying to get those, wouldn't that be Microsoft also would have problems getting that too, or what? Because I don't really know about the tech stuff. So it's like, if Sony's having problems with that, is Microsoft having problems?
Well, I honestly don't know. Like we don't know like the full rundown of what these, supply chain problems are. And a lot of it's sort of, I mean, you can read the Bloomberg stuff. At the end of the day, a lot of it's like when you read that stuff and then try and put your own spin on it, you're filling in the blanks with a lot of unknowns, especially as it pertains to Microsoft, because you don't know if Microsoft's using the same parts, the same supply chains. You don't know if Microsoft's going to like try and cleverly pull something to the side. And, Microsoft's pretty pally-pally with lots of major tech suppliers like Samsung, especially getting super close with Samsung recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are Windows components literally in Samsung's version of Android now. Like they're getting that close. It's kind of crazy. So like some of those sort of Samsung manufactures a lot of parts and stuff like that. I don't know if they're going to be using those in the Series X or whatever. But it's just an example of like the sort of partnerships that Microsoft has, the resources that it can pull out to make sure that it can keep those costs down sometimes. And I think it was last time on the show we talked about how the Xbox Series X is going to have these CF Express memory expansion cards, probably. And we talked about how like maybe Microsoft can keep costs down by buying these big bulk orders and stuff like that. But you know, these things are complicated, and I don't doubt Bloomberg's reporting at all, because you know they're a pretty huge outlet and they're known for pretty massive scoops on a corporate level. They are like a business reporting sort of outlet, and that's the sort of stuff they do. So I'm not like saying that I doubt what's going on here, but I will say that I don't think it's anything major to worry about if you're a PlayStation fan. Like these are problems that companies on that scale sort of have to solve. It's just part of the complexity of making product, you know, supply chains and all that stuff. It's a huge, complicated process. So is this gonna spell doom for PlayStation?
I mean, I don't think anybody's like saying doom, but I think a lot of people, myself included, I thought, hey, you know what? You have Jim Ryan talking about how they want to transition people from the PlayStation 4 to 5 at a pace they've never done before. To me, that screamed $399, not $499, right? I mean, clearly you're going to sell more at $400 than you will $500. And I just thought, like, hey, the PlayStation 4 did so well, selling 100 million units. They're like second fastest selling system ever, all the stuff that goes along with it. And one of the major factors of that was because of the price. It was priced perfectly. So I'm thinking, all right, if they want to repeat that, because PlayStation is such a huge part of Sony themselves, right? It's a huge part of their stock price and their revenue and all that stuff, that they need that system to get off to a really good start. Because if it doesn't get off to a good start, it's really going to affect their outlook going into the future. Where like Xbox, Xbox really doesn't affect Microsoft in any meaningful manner. Would you agree?
Yeah, it doesn't. Like,
but PlayStation
Microsoft
really does.
So diverse that no single part of Microsoft matters that much.
Yeah,
which is weird.
But PlayStation matters significantly to Sony. So I thought $400. You know, you build it out, you make it a powerful system, you sell for $400, and then you read this article and they're like, yeah, the BOM's $450, and it's like, really, $450? Like, and then that doesn't include shipping costs, because it's going to cost a pretty penny to ship all those consoles from China to everywhere else in the world. That doesn't include the retailer margin, because GameStop and Amazon and Best Buy, they don't sell those systems for free. You know, like they take a cut. And then, yeah, the research and development stuff, maybe not directly factored in to the price. Marketing, probably not directly factored into the price. But shipping and retailer cuts, like those are directly factored in. So if you're looking at a BOM, you know, at $450, and then you need to factor in shipping and all the other stuff, and you're up to like $480, $499, okay, we sell it at $500 day one. Maybe we lose a couple dollars. Maybe we break even. But everything at least you sell, you make tons of money on. But see, to me before, it didn't really make a lot of sense when they were saying that we needed to wait until Xbox for Xbox to give us their price. And before I get into what I want to say, Kid Smooth is generous enough to hit up Super Chat for his opinion. And he says, Xbox can body SIE. I love Kid Smooth. Xbox can body SIE by pricing Xbox Series X at $449 or $500, while also releasing Xbox Lockhart or XSS at $300 or $350. Sony do not want to sell the PS5 for $400. It'll take them too long to turn a profit. SIE needs the Xbox Series X to be $600 so they can sell the PS5 at $500. Send me $2 back. Yeah, I'll send you. I'll PayPal you $2 back, kid. Send me my $2 back. So yeah, so I do wonder if the price is that high, if it's realistically possible for them to sell it for $3.99 and take a gigantic loss.
Thing is, like, I don't think Microsoft would want to put, like, Microsoft. They don't want to. Like, people always say Microsoft wants to eat the. Microsoft can eat the cost, and maybe they can, but they don't want to. Phil wants, like, Satya and Phil, they want Xbox to earn its way and be profitable. Like, it's not economically viable to sell hardware like that at a loss. I don't. So, like, taking, like, a big loss just to get one over on Sony, like, it's probably not the way they want to go with it. But I don't think. Like, a lot of people always say that, but I don't think they want to go. I think it's far more realistic to expect that. I still think the Xbox Series X is going to be more expensive than the PlayStation. And I don't think this stuff's going to ultimately impact stuff, really.
You don't think the price is going to impact anything?
I don't think it's going to, like, it's going to change. I don't think it's going to change the narrative. I think, like, PlayStation will be cheaper than the Xbox. The Xbox will be slightly more powerful. And I think that's just the way it's going to be.
True. But I mean, I agree with you. I do think Series X will be more powerful. Now, will it be 5% or 30%? I couldn't tell you. But I also am sitting here and I'm like, okay, I don't think Xbox is going to price the Series X at $600. I think
$599.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be $599. I mean, Phil talked about how they won't be out of position on price or power, all that stuff. Like, it'll be a price that they've used in the past. I think, and considering, Xbox One 500, Xbox One X 500, I just kind of think, okay, what we're looking at for Series X is 500, to me at least. The question is, I thought Sony could come in at 400, but now if they can't, because they don't want to take a huge loss for, the next couple years, is Sony going to be okay with selling PS5 at the same price Xbox Series X is, even though the PlayStation 5 might be a weaker system? And then, of course, that doesn't factor in Lockhart at all. So then you got Lockhart, the mythical console that nobody knows about, but somehow everybody's been saying the whole Lockhart thing is so weird, because when you and like Brad Sams and Tom Warren first reported about it, it was like, okay, here's Anaconda, here's Lockhart. And then it was like, at E3, it was like, oh, by the way, Lockhart's been canceled. I'm like, okay. And then at the beginning of this year, it's like, no, wait, psych, Lockhart isn't canceled. It's still real. But here we are, February, and we haven't heard anything about Lockhart. Sure, we have a bunch of information about Series X. There's GitHub leaks from both and, all this stuff. And it's like, we still sitting here and don't even know if Lockhart's real. I mean, I think 100% it's real. I think it's coming out, but then that puts another wrench into this whole pricing dynamic, because if Sony and the Series X are 500 and here comes Lockhart at 300, does that change a lot of things? Does that change the narrative even more? Will people even care? Because I did say this in a Twitter thread yesterday. Someone's like, hey, is the market ready for two $500 systems at launch? And I said, well, how would the market also react to a next-gen system that's $299 at launch? And he said, well, a lot of people said in the thread, if it doesn't have a disk drive, nobody's going to care. And I thought to myself, that's really weird, because the reason people didn't care about Xbox One SAT was because you could get the same system with the disk drive for the same price and cheaper. But if you're talking about next gen, the only places to play next gen games, the only two systems that are going to have a disk drive are both going to be $500, and here's potentially one that is going to be $200 less. I said, if the system comes in cheap enough, nobody's going to care that it doesn't have a disk drive.
Yeah, and I think like the whole disk drive value thing it's not a case of. There's a lot of people on Twitter will be like, "Oh, don't get rid of the disk drive because it's philosophically bad." But the public at large, they don't care about that stuff. They just see like what's value for money. And if dropping the disk drive actually saves money, then they'll do it. It's just that the SAD didn't save the money at launch, and it barely does even now. Like people put like a certain amount of value on something, even if it's not worth that much. In practice, and people obviously value the disk drive more than what they were saving, if they were saving anything at all. But that all changes next gen, doesn't it?
But then you got people's backlogs and their digital library moving forward, so people might be locked into their ecosystems. So it gets kind of even more complicated. But here's what I think's really going down, Jez. And I said this in my video yesterday. I think the cost of the PlayStation 5 maybe got a little bit too high for Sony. I mean, judging from the Bloomberg article, of course, right? They saying these prices got too costly. And they're in this position where it's like, it's not like the BOM's 420 where they can take a loss and then make the money back on a game sale. Like, it's all the way up to 450, up to 470, basically meaning the console needs to be 499. And
the Fortnite wave is over.
The Fortnite wave is over. And now you have Sony saying, from the Bloomberg article, that the executives are saying, we need to kind of wait and see what Microsoft does first. Now, Microsoft rumored to be having maybe a media event in April or May to reveal more information about Series X and maybe even Lockhart. And then, of course, the E3 thing. I think Sony wants to see what Xbox is going to price their Series X at. I think they're hoping Xbox doesn't take the loss and prices the Series X at $600. Just kind of like what Kit Smooth said in his post, because I think they want to price it at $500 and not lose any money, but then they also don't want to be in that position of having to choose between launching a weaker PlayStation 5 at the same price as Series X or taking a gigantic loss for the first couple years at $399. So I think
like the approach is smart by Sony, and I tell you what it shows. It shows that Sony hasn't gone all arrogant, and it shows that like they haven't gone overconfident to the point where they're not playing it safe anymore. Because like when it came to when the PS3 launched, they were just like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. We're so far ahead, and Xbox barely even exists. We'll just price the PS3 at whatever." And like they didn't even take any of that stuff into consideration. They're clearly not making that mistake twice.
Yeah, Eternal Shaddai says, whether it be a $399 or $499 console, if at launch there isn't a game that isn't appealing to the public, the console momentum will flop. See, I disagree. Right?
We live in different times now. I think a lot of core gamers, like, they like to think that video game consoles are like they are back in the day, where like they need like a specific game to sell. We live in different times now, and like it's really funny. Like they were talking about on Windows Central podcast how like phones are hitting $2,000 now on the high end. Like the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra is $1,400, I think, off the top of my head. It's $1,400, and you know it's arguably one of the best phones ever made. And if you want the best phone ever made on the market with the ridiculous 120 megapixel camera or whatever it is, 5,000 milliamp hour battery or whatever it is, you've got to spend that money. And like nobody bats an eyelid. Like no one seriously bats an eyelid and says, "Oh my God, Samsung's being ridiculous by selling a $1,400 phone." No one bats an eyelid. But like if Sony or Microsoft increases the price of their consoles by $100, everyone loses their minds.
Yeah, but it's because phones just do way more than consoles. Phones like an extension of yourself. Like, people need their phones, which is why they're willing to pay an exuberant amount for it. You know what I mean?
I disagree though, because you can buy a OnePlus 7T for like $300, and functionarily it does exactly the same as a Galaxy S20 Ultra. You know, it does the same stuff. It takes photos that are decent quality, enough for Instagram. It runs all the games at like 60 frames per second. You know, I just think it's like there's too much of a strict narrative about how much this technology is worth. And for me, I think like, why not have a console that does more and costs more, and have a console that does less and costs less? Like, why not have Lockhart and Xbox Series X, you know, for different price ranges? Like, if I'm gonna buy a gaming PC, like I bought the mid-range Razer Blade laptop because I figured, you know, I probably not gonna need to buy the 2080 Ti version. And like I saved myself like $500. Like, it should work like that. Like, why don't consoles work like that? And my Razer Blade laptop can run games that are 30 years old. If I want to run a game from the 80s, I can run it. And people act like why would people not upgrade a laptop or a PC over time just because there's like a game that doesn't showcase the latest graphics or whatever? It's just not. It's all sort of blurring together now. Like, you'll be able to have all the games that come out on the Xbox in the next like 2 years. Apparently, they're gonna run on the Xbox One X too. You just won't get ray tracing. You won't get all those like bells and whistles and stuff like that. So if you want to have the games that look the best, then you buy an Xbox Series X or you buy an RTX 2080. You know, that's the way gaming's going to be now, because we're all on the same architecture. Like, it didn't work like that before because of the architecture, but everything's x86 now, and it can scale across devices. So I think that mentality is an old-fashioned way of thinking. That it needs to have a showcase game. I don't think it needs to have a showcase game.
I think people just are going to get it because people are hyped about the technology, and quite frankly, launch of this gen didn't really... Like, launches typically usually don't have great games. That's just kind of how it is, and people still buy them anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, like, when I bought my Xbox One, I think, like, the games I was playing were, like, was it Battlefield 3 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag? Like, I think those are the first games I had for my Xbox One.
Yeah, but
like,
it's just that it's more like if you're buying day one, you're more like you're buying it on the future potential of the console, because you're clearly not buying it for the game, like, because it's going to have like X amount of games, not that many, right? But Microsoft and Sony are going to show you, yo, we have Fable, we have the Initiatives games, we have Obsidian's next games, we got X, Y, and Z games, and Sony's going to be like, God of War 2 at some point, Naughty Dog's new IP at some point, Spider-Man 2 at some point. So it's like, damn, I need to get this now. It's not I don't think them not having any of the consoles having a huge game is not going to matter. They'll sell. See, it doesn't really matter even what price they sell at initially, right? Like, whether the consoles are $500 or $399, whatever both console manufacturers make, they'll sell out because the hardcore will buy those. Now, obviously, the price sensitive people, that'll happen, in the following year. Like, you look at Xbox One when it launched, and we look on Xbox One, it's like, man, it really didn't sell very well. But it sold extremely well for Xbox for December and November in its launch month in 2013.
The ultimate truth is that the business model for the whole industry has changed this generation. And like Sony have said it in an interview recently, where they were saying, judge us on the monthly active users, not the units sold, because
that was the Bloomberg article.
Okay, well, the margins aren't in the hardware. The margins aren't in the hardware. So like, it would be better for Sony to keep selling microtransactions on Fortnite on PlayStation 4 than it would be to sell 1 million PlayStation 5s and not sell like weak margins, because the margins on Fortnite skins are just better. That's just the way a business sort of works now. So they're not in any rush to shift hardware sales. And I don't care what he says, like they want to have the fastest upgrade path or whatever. I don't care what he says. That's not the business anymore. It's not about it sounds nice in a YouTube video, like, oh man, Sony smashed 150 million units sold or whatever. It sounds nice in a YouTube video, but talk to me about attach rates and stuff like that. Talk to me about monthly active users and the people that are spending consistently on the store on digital goods, which cost literally nothing to host and have no overheads and stuff like that.
Well, I'm sure there's overheads. Bandwidth is expensive.
like kilobytes.
You know.
The license for a Fortnite skin is kilobyte.
Sure, yeah, it is true.
And it's like, it's hard to like explain in a succinct way, but it's kind of like the point that I'm trying to make is that it doesn't really matter if these consoles are sort of come steaming out the gate like it did last gen. Like we talked about how this was the wrong generation for Microsoft to lose because this is the generation of digital lock-in. This is the generation where all of your content's going to move forward in perpetuity because now we're on x86 architecture. This was the wrong generation to lose because of cloud gaming and because of persistent online worlds and online games and stuff like that. Is because people are locked into their platforms of choice now. And because of that, there's no real impetus to sell system upgrades. You make new systems when the technology demands it. And now we've got ray tracing, which really is going to change the whole dynamics of immersive AAA gaming. That's a good enough reason to start pushing new systems and VR as well. Like, I'm not a fan of VR personally, but I feel the potential. Like, if they can make a VR headset that doesn't make me sick, great. But, you know, I'm not seeing that happening in the short term. But I'm really happy that Sony's pushing it because eventually someone's going to solve that problem because that's how technology is. Technology is, you know, in perpetual improvement. It's iterative. And these consoles, like it or not, they're calling it a new generation, but really they're just iterative. It might as well be called the, you know, PlayStation 4.8 and the Xbox One 2. You might as well call them because they are basically iterative consoles.
Yeah, they're just like much better on the performance side.
Yeah,
essentially.
But they'll run all of the things that you've got now, all of the stuff you own now. There's no cutoff, really. It's only when developers start making games that just are so complicated and the user base has shifted and upgraded to the point where there's no need to even consider the old hardware. That's the only time that our past generation will die. If there's still tons of people playing on PS4 actively every month, they're still going to make versions for PS4. You know. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer some of his super chats. We got one from Aaron that says it would be an awesome way to win over some people and get revenge for the game shaming video, the game sharing video. And P Diddy says, "Is the sauce is that the X is a PC port machine?" There's still some people talking about how Windows is going to be unlocked on Series X, Jez. You know, like full Windows. You know, you'll be able to essentially play your Steam games on Series X because Microsoft is going to put like full Windows on there, which I think is absurd.
I would be shocked. Like if that happens, like I don't know. I'll apologize, but I just don't believe it at all right now.
Yeah,
I think it's just the whole idea is silly. Why wouldn't they just make Xbox branded gaming PC at that point?
Wasn't that kind of what Series X almost is to a certain degree?
But the whole point is that it can be less powerful than a PC because it doesn't have all the legacy Windows overhead. It doesn't have all those Windows APIs and all those, you know, crazy Windows drivers and the millions and millions of different graphics cards. That's the whole point of a console, is that it keeps costs down by not doing that stuff. So, I don't know. Call me crazy, Rand, but I don't think you're going to be playing Steam games on your
Series. I mean, I don't really I don't really have any Steam games, but you know, since we're
I got loads of Steam games. Like I wouldn't hate it if I could play Steam games on there, but I just don't see it. It's just weird. Like I don't know where that rumor comes from. I think like someone probably looked on the Windows operating system and found that it runs bits of Windows and put 2 and 2 together and made 5 or something. I don't know. What ifs?
Anyways, the other bit of news that kind of made some people freak out was, and me and you have talked about this on the podcast a lot. So, like, if you've been listening to the show, obviously you already know this, but Phil views Google and Amazon as the actual competitors, not Nintendo and Sony. How long have we been saying this?
I'm sure I wrote about this.
You've wrote about it. We've talked about it. I mean,
I actually wrote about this before I joined Windows Central. I wrote an editorial about this when the Xbox One first came out. That was the way this was going. I wrote about that on ICXM. That's how long I've been saying it. So I just thought it was really funny how this made everyone melt down.
Sure did. I mean, it sure did. I don't think it's a shock at all. I mean, look at Microsoft as a company. Of course, yeah, their competition is Apple and Google and, Amazon and Tencent. You got to worry about Tencent. I'm surprised he didn't say Tencent. Tencent's everywhere.
He's not saying Tencent because he's probably the most worried about Tencent.
Probably. He probably is like, yeah. But here's the thing, though. It's like, I will say, like, I get it, and I've talked to Phil about this, and I understand where he's coming from, but, like, and I guess you don't really care about how it looks or the perception of it. Like, obviously the perception is, hey, like, Phil comes out there and be like, yeah, our competitors are Amazon and Google, right? And not PlayStation and Switch. But, like, PlayStation is killing it, right? They got 103 million active users, which is what Sony says you need to judge their console on, not by hardware sales, which is a ton. Nintendo killing it with the Switch. Supposedly sold more, Switches already than Xbox Ones. And Phil's like, don't compare us to those guys, because that's not our competition. Our competition is Amazon, who doesn't have a game streaming service yet, and Google Stadia, which is a complete joke at this point. So it kind of comes off as like, it's like you're the third string, you're the third best player on the varsity team, and you can't beat the two guys in front of you. So you're like, don't compare me. Those guys aren't my competition. My two competitors are the two guys on the JV squad that haven't really played any. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know, like, when you think of it that way, it seems silly, right? But this is the kind of thing you don't want to get wrong. Like, this is the kind of thing you don't want to sort of take for granted. Like, if you just presume Google are going to fail with Stadia because they've had a really crappy launch, that's like bad business. It feels like, oh, they've had a bit of a crappy launch, let's just ignore them completely. That'd be really bad strategy, because Google has an insane amount of money, and they have insane amount of cash flow and an insane amount of power. They control the flow of information on the internet. And, like, they keep getting fined for manipulating search results. But, like, for Google, it's pretty much just a slap on the wrist, We talk about how, like, Google doesn't send out your notifications and stuff like that. I think about that on a sort of corporate level. If Google wants to bury your product in its search result, they pretty much can. Like, the competition regulators will say, like, oh, we can stop them from doing this. But Google can do what it wants. It can, like, sort of do it in subtle ways that don't piss the regulators off. Like, they can bake Stadia directly into YouTube, which is going to happen at some point. It's going to be like you're watching a game trailer, and then it's like, boom, you can jump straight into it on Google Stadia. And, like, that convenience, that level of convenience could buy them an audience that haven't really played console games before. And I think that's part of Google's hope, is that it can find an audience that sort of aren't already invested in PlayStation and stuff like that, and maybe, like, shift, like, the younger generation over, which is why they're putting a big emphasis on YouTube Kids and stuff like that. And if you're a little kid and your favorite YouTuber is, like, playing some Stadia exclusive, and then at the end of the video it comes up with, oh, and now you can play your favorite YouTuber's game straight away on Stadia with this free trial or whatever. It's a no-brainer. And then it comes up at the end, oh, by the way, you have to tell your parents to buy Google Stadia for 6 months or something. They could buy a whole generation. Like, there's a whole generation of kids growing up knowing all their information through Google's platform right now. And that is power. That is insane power. So to ignore that would be terrible business. And the same goes for Amazon. Like, Amazon, basically, if you go to Amazon.com, when you want to buy anything, the first thing you see are adverts for Amazon's own product. So it's kind of like Amazon was able to bury all Amazon Echo competitors just by putting its products on the front page. Now, arguably, that's going to piss off regulators at some point too, But they could do the same with Amazon streaming service, and they've got an insane amount of money. And of course, Google and Amazon could both screw it up, and it could all fail, and it could amount to nothing. But if you're in Phil Spencer's position, you can't afford to let Xcloud become another Windows phone. You can't afford to let it miss that boat like Microsoft let them. They missed the boat on mobile. They missed the boat on, voice-assisted speakers and voice technology. They can't afford to miss the boat on this because it's their core business. It's cloud, and it would damage their credibility in cloud if they mess this up. Sorry. So there's more at stake here than just sort of like selling a few games consoles. And the reason Phil said that is because there's a school of thought that the console market is maxed out and it can't grow anymore. Like everyone who owns a console now is all the people that's ever going to own a console. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, so MPD just came out and Matt Piscatella said that Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are 16% higher in total combined user base than the same time frame compared to 360 and PS3. So it's slightly higher, but it's not like significantly higher. And obviously,
it's growing more slowly than like that. Basically, what I'm saying.
Right. So
like it's there's 7 billion people on the planet, and we're talking like a few hundreds of millions.
Let's get this out of the straight. 7 billion, like he says, 7 billion in that article. It's just supposed to be a metaphor for appealing to as many people as possible, because
it's a metaphor.
You're not reaching 7 billion people. You're barely probably gonna even hit 2 billion. You're barely gonna get 1 billion. You're probably maybe at most potentially gonna get 500 million.
Well, that's the scale these companies think on.
I know.
When they announced Windows 10, Satya's goal was 2 billion in a year. Which, it didn't seem unrealistic. And then they missed that target by a mile. I think they've hit 2 billion now, but it took them a lot longer than they said they were going to do. But still, they were able to hit that target because that's like their North Star. It's their like sort of Polaris. That's like what their thought process is. Let's try and hit as many as possible. It's metaphorical. They don't literally mean they're going to get people like Tibetan monks up a mountain playing Xcloud. That's not literally what they mean.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of Xcloud, they brought it to iOS finally, and Jesus, is the restrictions to the Apple Store like something else? Like, so it's been on Android since last year, and I think even more people are in it now. There's like 90 games on it. You can play it on any Android 6.0 device, right?
Yeah.
So it finally comes to iOS, which, hey, xCloud's on iOS before even Google can get Stadia on iOS, and even before Google can get Stadia on any of the other Android devices. But
sorry, go on.
So they were limited to only 10,000 people, and they were limited to one game, which was of Microsoft's like, well, if we're limited to one game, let's give them the game that has 6 games in it, the Master Chief Collection. How, like, here's the I don't know much about iOS. Like, even though I do have I'm an iPhone user, I don't know much about the restrictions of the store. So maybe you've talked to people, maybe you know, like, why is Apple so restrictive to this stuff, where it's to the point where Microsoft can only have one game, and it's a set amount of people? Is Apple going to hamper Microsoft's chase to 2 billion gamers by not really allowing them to put xCloud on the device, essentially?
Well, first of all, Apple's not even a factor in the 2 billion games things, because globally, no one owns an iPhone. Sorry,
globally, no. But that's where. But that may be true. The vast majority of mobile spending is on iOS. So if you actually want people to spend money, you got to get people on iOS, because people on Android don't spend anything.
Well, it doesn't matter, because if you play on an Xcloud, you're sort of device agnostic, isn't it? Like Netflix. Like I can use Netflix on my Android phone, but I'm very rarely actually going to do that. But anyway, that's just me hating on Apple because they suck. But the fact that there's only Halo on there, it's not really anything to do with Apple. It's just a case of Microsoft has to build up a separate platform. They have to use Apple's tools. They have to go through all of Apple's sort of systems and restrictions, and presumably Halo was probably just the first game that was connected up to all their sort of testing tools and their platforms and stuff like that for iOS, because they probably had to rebuild them all on the separate platform. So I don't think this is a case of Apple restricting it to one game. It's probably just more of a case of going through the licensing process again for a separate platform. It's probably a case of navigating all of Apple's legal stuff. And you got to remember, it's still a test. It's not actually out yet. So I don't think like this is anything to worry about in terms of Apple stopping Microsoft from putting its stuff on iOS. It's just a case of they're building a separate platform here.
Ricardo says people on Android don't spend anything. What kind of idiotic nonsense? I mean, hey, that's what the market research says.
Yeah, that is true. Like if you look at Rand's not just making stuff up. If you look at the market research, Google Play just isn't it's not a big moneymaker for developers. Developers build first for iOS because iOS users spend more money.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could say that's because discoverability is better on iOS. You could say it's because iOS is on average more popular in developed countries, whereas Android's more popular in sort of developing nations and stuff like that. You could say loads of factors, but that is the market research.
Yeah. Shout out to the Ravenflow. He asked us, hey guys, how many subscribers does Netflix have? And I get where he's going with this. Netflix has about I don't know, like 170, 160, 180 worldwide subscribers, I think. Somewhere along those lines. And I get, I understand what he's trying to get at. Basically saying that movies are maybe more universal and Netflix only has 170 million subscribers. So how could Xbox or even PlayStation get that many more? But it's like what Jez was saying. It's Microsoft as a company's approach is like it's cloud, and they view or they think 10 years from now cloud is going to be the way most people interact with gaming, and Microsoft wants to be the one there. Microsoft wants to be the iPhone, be the first one there, be the dominant force, and not the one coming like years later like with Windows Phone, where essentially it's nothing and your whole business fails. Like Microsoft is trying to prepare for the future, which is why they've been positioning Xcloud as an additive. It's not something to replace your Xbox console. It's just something that is an additional feature that you get. Hey, if you have an iOS or a phone and you're on the go, you can play your Xbox. It's not going to be better than your console, but it's just, it's just an extra, additive addition. Now, 10 years from now, maybe that changes. 12 years from now, who really knows? I mean, I think these companies are betting on cloud gaming being a big thing. Sony also is clearly thinking it is, which is why they've partnered with Microsoft on, the Azure eventually down the road. So these companies just want to, they're setting the groundwork for it.
The cool thing about this stuff is that it doesn't detract from the console. It helps the console. And one of the things that Microsoft announced recently was in the South Korea Xcloud test, they're seeing South Korean gamers spend almost twice as long playing games on their phones through Xcloud than Western users. So culturally or whatever, if users in some cultures prefer playing games on their mobiles, this could be a way for Microsoft to promote the Xbox developer platform in Japan and stuff like that, where they've traditionally failed. Like if no one wants to buy an Xbox console, then fine, they'll turn your phone into an Xbox console. And you still have to make your game for Xbox consoles to get it onto Xcloud. So it's only something that's going to help console gamers in general. It's not going to be like this sort of thing that replaces your console. It's supplementary thing, like Ron said.
I've also been predicting that we got 2 generations left of consoles for sure. I think we got this gen, and like Jez says, is it really even generations because they're essentially the same architecture? But essentially, I think we have the PS5, Xbox Series X for a good 7 years, and then I think you have a one after that, because even though digital has made a lot of inroads, it's still like 50-50 digital physical. There are people who are still like, screw digital, screw game subscriptions, I want my physical disc, which is, hey, they're right. They want to have the physical product. They want to have the ability to resell it. Digital hasn't really overtaken physical, but it's come a long ways. And now this gen, you're going to start adding streaming. But streaming, a lot of people are a little bit more apprehensive about, right? Digital people were a little bit more quick to grasp because you still own the game. You can play it offline, but streaming, it's online, and people's internet is an issue. So I think it takes a little bit longer for people to actually adapt to streaming. And this gen is going to see digital overtake physical. So by the end of the gen, 2027, 2026, digital will be a healthy portion of the market. It'll be like 70-30 in favor of digital. And then streaming will come in, but it won't have like the huge percentage that digital did this gen. So they're going to need another gen where people get more accustomed to streaming, more accustomed to digital. So I think we still got 2 generations of hardware from both PlayStation and Xbox. But that's just
the thing is, I don't even think the goal is to get rid of physical.
No, I don't think it is either.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like 3 or 4 more hardware generations where you can have local hardware, because I think like at some point you hit like a cap on how fast your government can improve, cloud services. And Google hit this cap, and they were like, you know what, we'll just make our own ISP. So Google started doing that Google Fiber thing, which didn't pan out because they discovered that, navigating all that local government bullshit is actually really difficult. So like there's going to be a hard cap on how much progression or the speed of progression of internet speeds versus local hardware. So I personally don't necessarily think that even 2 or 3 generations is going to be enough. I think like maybe 4 or more. But it's weird though, because like human beings are strange beasts, right? Like I remember when I was a kid and I started downloading MP3s off Napster. Don't arrest me, FBI. But I started downloading MP3s off Napster, and it took like, I don't know, 7 hours or something to download a full album off Napster on 28 kilobytes per second. Like, it took all day. My hard drive could only store about 70 MP3s. And I was just like, you know what? This ain't going to replace CDs for me. So, like, I carried on buying CDs and ripping them to my hard drive. And then Spotify came out in the UK, and it was amazing. It was like, how can this service even be possible? And I'm still not sure Spotify is actually profitable yet. But, it's proven itself to be, it's upended the music industry.
Yes.
And like, who buys CDs anymore? Like, but having said that, vinyl sales are like exploding because of this whole nostalgia factor. So I do see a world where like people still buy the local hardware and they still buy collector's editions and stuff like that, because there's a sort of, I don't know, it's just cool to have a collector's edition. It's cool to have physical discs. Like I would still buy physical, if I actually had my own place and I didn't have to like be mobile. Like the convenience of digital means that I can like move around, lock to any console. But if I had my own place, I would still totally buy physical games because it's just cool to collect them. So who knows? Maybe by the time like all this streaming stuff takes off, that like there'll be some sort of backlash and physical games will come back in fashion, and everyone will want to own them and stuff like that.
Well, even with me saying 2 generations, that's at least 12 years. I mean, we're talking 2032. Like,
and we'll be dead by then.
I mean, who knows what anything's like in the 2030s? I mean, so we still got some time. I mean, if you think back, like 12 years ago, or what's 12 years ago? Is that 2005 is at 16 years ago at this point, 15 years ago, and that was the beginning of the Xbox 360. I mean, things have changed quite a bit. So it's just weird. Like you got Phil saying Amazon and Google are his competitors in cloud gaming. You got the whole PlayStation 5 pricing thing, like, might be more expensive. The Sony CEO saying that, hey, judge us on player, active users, but not console sales. A whole lot of great news, or interesting news at least. And we had a little bit of thing about E3, Jez. Geoff Keighley's not going to be there. People are like, well, that means E3's dead now for sure. If Geoff Keighley's not going to be there, it means it's a dead show. What do you think about Keighley not being at E3 this year?
Well, I don't know why people are so shocked about this. Like, Keighley's like actively trying to replace E3 and make the VGAs like the big event of the year. He's got a competing show technically, so why would he go to E3? I don't know.
Well, what do you mean? I don't know why, what do you mean a competing show at the same time? Like when he was doing the Coliseum show at the same time, that was competing, or are you talking about the Game Awards?
I'm so, like if he would rather we live in a world where developers announce their games during the VGAs and not during E3. So if E3 dies, that's good for him. So why is anyone shocked?
Well, I think from his statement, it had more to do with like the leaks that E3's been having lately.
What leaks?
I mean, their like website was up. I mean, last year they basically leaked everybody's names and addresses for the journalists and the influencers. Remember?
And that's why he's not going.
I mean, he also said he wasn't going the day where their website leaked. Like it was leaked by them. Like it wasn't even up yet, but it was like accessible or whatever it was. And he was just like, you know what? I've had enough of this. I don't know. Like I just find it. I don't know, like Geoff Keighley, like I like Geoff Keighley a lot. I think he's done a lot to move the Game Awards in a good direction.
Yeah, I like him too. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against the guy, but I'm just saying, like, why is anyone shocked about it? I don't know. If E3 dies, then the VGAs becomes the biggest event of the year for gaming.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
it does, doesn't it? The Gamescom's nowhere near that big or important.
True. And I think I saw something. Wasn't the VGAs this year actually seen by more people than the Oscars, the recent Oscars?
I have no idea.
Like 45 million people saw the VGAs, and Microsoft unveiled Series X, and I think only 23 million watched the Oscars when Parasite won. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen Parasite, I've talked about it, I've tweeted about it. Check out Parasite because it's an amazing movie.
I thought Joker won.
He won for Best Actor. But Parasite won for Best Picture, as it's well deserved.
Is that his first Oscar?
Yes, Joaquin Phoenix's first Oscar. Yeah, indeed.
He totally deserved that.
But
he was incredible.
Jazz, you need to watch Parasite if you haven't watched it already. Like,
isn't it a comedy?
Part of it is yes. Like the first
I don't like comedies.
Well, it's not entirely all comedy. It's a bunch of different genres, but the beginning is kind of a. I wouldn't say it's a comedy in a way that like Bruce Almighty is, or like Austin Powers. There's comedic elements to it, but it's more of a drama. But yeah, you definitely need to check out Parasite. But it's subtitled. But I don't think you really mind that, right?
Nah.
Because you watch anime.
I watch subbed anime because I'm a gentleman of culture.
Yes. What else we got here? Game Pass, Jazz. Game Pass. So Take-Two announced the sales of Outer Worlds. They sold 2 million, which is great. But they were quoted as saying that it's hard to say if Game Pass helped or hurt the title. What's your takeaways from that?
Well, they would say that.
They would. How do you? What makes you say that?
Well, because I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't want to say. A lot of publishers are sort of, I don't know, skeptical about it. Microsoft certainly would like to say that Game Pass helps the virality of games, which helps the sales. But it's hard to like demonstrate that. Like you can always think about like, I wish I could do a test where I did one thing and then go back in time and do the other and see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's like it's a convenient scapegoat for it not selling to expectations or whatever, isn't it?
So What are you trying to say?
I don't know. I mean, did it meet their expectations or not?
I don't know. But I mean,
well, it's for their investors, like they would say that because it's a good scapegoat. It means like, well, you can't blame us because, we
but I mean, why
we lost
couldn't
the
you?
IP to Microsoft.
But why couldn't you blame them? Because they're the ones who. It's not like Microsoft was like, "Yo, put this shit on Game Pass," and you have no say in it. It's like they obviously took the deal, so
I guess.
I mean, they obviously got.
Well, they could still shift some blame to Microsoft by saying like Microsoft didn't promote Game Pass enough, or Game Pass isn't doing as well as Microsoft say it is.
Well, I mean, they also took the deal for Epic Game Store.
Oh well, that definitely hurt the game.
I mean, so I do find it interesting where they say they don't know if it hurt or help. I was just like,
well, that's weird. Like, I mean, obviously the game would have sold more units if it hit Steam, but would they have had that lump sum of sweet, juicy Epic Games Chinese money? I don't know.
See, the thing I think Game Pass is missing is a big game like Outer Worlds, something like Cyberpunk. I would wonder how that would help the service, but then I also wonder how if it would really negatively impact the sales of it, right? Like, because Outer Worlds, outside of like Xbox's own games like Gears, Outer Worlds is maybe like the first truly big game launching day one outside of like the indie games, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
So I do wonder if, like, say for example, hypothetically, Cyberpunk was coming to Game Pass day one.
It's risky.
Would CD Projekt Red say it was tough to tell if it helped or didn't help? You know what I mean? But does it matter if it helped or hurt if you're also getting paid for it? And you agree that obviously the terms were of value to you, because otherwise why accept it if it didn't, right?
Yeah. I mean, did they say that it didn't meet their expectations then?
I think
2 million?
I don't want to say for sure, but I think they said it met their expectations. They just don't know if Game Pass helped.
Like, if I go to a normie who plays Fortnite and Call of Duty and FIFA and say to them, "Have you heard of Outer Worlds?" chances are probably they won't have heard of it. Like, making new IP is tough, So it probably just is what it is. And also, it's sort of like it was a great game, but it wasn't like mind blowing, and it didn't do anything super unique. It was basically just the sequel to New Vegas that we never got. Would you agree with me that it wasn't like super?
No, it wasn't super. It wasn't super unique. I'd agree with you on that, but I don't think it needed to be.
No, it was a great game for what it is, and I'm looking forward to the sequel, and like the world building was great and stuff like that, but it wasn't unique in the way that, like, when Skyrim came out, it was like unprecedented scale, and that was unique in a way. And Grand Theft Auto, as well, like just these games with ridiculous sort of scale and stuff like that. And then Fortnite with its sort of like, I mean, yeah, they ripped off PUBG pretty hard, but like for some reason it just sort of captured the imagination of a younger audience, and that was unique. And Minecraft, obviously unique, digital Legos. No one had done anything like that before, at least not at that scale. So I don't know. I think that if they're expecting more, I think they're probably like expectations were probably too high. I don't know.
I mean, I think 2 million is pretty good for that game with the marketing it had. I mean, it came out the same day as I think the new Call of Duty. So I mean, I'm sure that didn't help. But speaking of something selling really well, I don't know if you saw this, but the Elite Series 2, Matt Piscatella posted that it's the best-selling accessory for the 3rd month in a row and the 5th fastest-selling accessory ever, and it's only been on the market for 3 months.
That's That's crazy. You know, it's funny. Like I've like had a few emails and messages from people who've had like faulty Elite Series controllers trying to like get me to write about it, but I can't write about it because mine's been great. Like I've really battered mine and not really taken good care of it, and it still works perfectly well. So like when I haven't had the same experience that they're not high quality, then I can't really say much. And also like we've got a bunch of them internally, and no one I know has had any issues with it.
Yeah, I don't have an issue. No, I have one. I bought one when it came out. I don't have an issue with it. The build quality's good. There's no stick drift in mine. None of the buttons stick. I'm really impressed with it. I like it a lot. I think it's better than the first Elite controller. And clearly, people, I mean, judging from what Matt Piscatella and MPD are saying, I mean, it seems to be doing incredibly well. Like the 5th fastest selling accessory ever, being on the market for 3 months. I mean, it's a premium product. It's $180.
That just goes to show, like what we were talking about earlier, with like if the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X is more expensive, if you can demonstrate value, you'll find the market, you know. And like the fact that it's the thing I love most about it, like, is the charge dock. Like it's so convenient, and the battery life is just supreme. Like there's no
the battery life is really good.
Yeah, like there's no controller that sort of has that combo of super high quality charge dock. Like most charge docks are these sort of cheap, sort of, you know, third party things, which is sort of like they're created for volume rather than quality. Like this is like the best. It's like magnetic and it's heavy, so it doesn't slide around on your desk, and like all those sort of little premium sort of things that, you know, you expect to get when you pay a premium price. There's no other charge dock that does this, and that alone is worth it for me. So I'm gonna write a re-review of it this week, I think, and sort of do like a, you know, however many months later, 4 months now.
3 months? It's well, yeah. So they were doing what, the January report, so 3 months in January because it came out in November. So like I think December. No, it come out in October. So
right.
November, December, January. But yeah, but it also, I mean, like, you also have the regular controllers, and it's not like the regular controllers are shitty at all. Like, they're really good. So it's like people are choosing that expensive one because it is quality. They just, I know there's been some people that have issues with it, and like, I can't speak on that because I don't have it. But I will say, if mine does develop stick drift, I will be pissed. I will be furious because
is that what the issues people are having?
Some people have stick drift. Some people have the buttons like the A, the B, and the X's kind of stick in too much. I haven't seen anybody saying like the grips are falling apart, which was like the big issue with the first Elite, was after extended time the grips would kind of split.
Yeah, I had that on 2 Elite controllers.
The thing that always happens with my controllers is I get stick drift in them eventually at some point. Because I play a ton, so it's like I go through like one controller every single year. So like I remember talking to some of the guys who made the Elite controller, and they're like, "Well, what's your expectations for this?" So it's like, "Well, considering that it's twice the price of a normal controller, right? I would expect to also get twice the length of like the durability of it. Like if I expect a controller to last me a year before I have to replace it, and I'm spending $60 on it, and now you expect me to spend $150 on this Elite, then I expect at minimum 2 years of near flawless conditions. And if now it's 180, so that's 3 controllers, I'm expecting 3 years. So if I don't get 3 years, if at some point like later on this year it's like, oh, by the way, it's got stick drift now, I'm gonna send an angry DM to James. Be like, listen here, like
James, shoot.
I just spent $180 on this thing because you didn't get me one, and now I got to replace it and spend more, and then you're probably gonna come out with an Elite Series 3, which has a little button for the record that, you know what I mean? So I'm on to you guys. You're just gonna come out with another controller. That's what they're gonna do. Did you see who won Dice's Game of the Year, Jez? That caused a little bit of, I'm not gonna say controversy in like the development community, but definitely a lot of like gamers were a little pissed off, I guess, or maybe that's not the right word to use.
Why is that?
Untitled Goose Game won.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. Untitled Goose Game won. And man, people were just it was funny because people were saying basically that like how could Untitled Goose Game win? Because it's a meme when there were like way better games. Like how could Death Stranding not win? Or how could Gears not win? Or how could Sekiro not win, right? How does Untitled Goose Game win?
I'm down for that, man. Goose Game is sweet. I'm sorry, Ran. Have you played it?
I have not played Goose Game. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, the developers vote on it. Developers obviously thought Untitled Goose Game was the best game of the year.
I think, for developers, part of it's probably like, how much money you can make versus how much you spend. Like the margins on Goose Game must have been pretty good, right? And like the fact that it sort of captured the imagination of like the meme culture and it's super simplistic. Like I love it. Like I totally don't mind that at all. I almost gave it Game of the Year.
Really? You almost gave it.
I almost did, yeah.
James says that his DMs are always open for me. So he is listening, and I'm gonna have to be like, James, where's my Elite Series 3? Thank you very much. No, it's just funny because Goose Game, I was reading the thread on Reset Era, and there were just people like, this is pathetic. How could
what's wrong with Goose Game? Why don't people like it?
I don't know, because they feel like there's a lot of people out there that feel indie games aren't of the same quality as like AAA games. You know what I mean? That how could you, when compared to Death Stranding, how could Untitled Goose Game be named better? You know what I mean?
Why did you suddenly become Deckard Cain?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Deckard Cain from Diablo 3. You just suddenly sounded like him. It was like a really good impression. Was that intentional?
No, it definitely was not intentional.
Deckard Cain. He's like an old wizard guy. No.
No. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And Samsung, we mentioned this before. Samsung and Xbox partnered up for Xcloud. What does this mean, Jez? What does this really mean?
I have no idea. I reached out to PR, and I was like, "So, what does this mean?" And they're like, "We'll have more to talk about later." So I don't know if even Microsoft knows what it means right now. I think like at least what it means is that Project Xcloud will be launching on the Samsung Galaxy App Store, which is a separate app store next to the Google Play App Store on Android. Like Mixer. There's a special Samsung Galaxy version of Mixer, which has special Samsung Galaxy stickers. So like there's this whole Samsung Galaxy App Store. I think like Samsung envisions a day when they can get rid of Google completely off their phones and not have the Google Play Store. And Microsoft will be down for that. Like you can get Office and all the Microsoft apps through the Galaxy Store. So maybe it's just something like on that sort of skew. Well, I don't know.
I was thinking like maybe it just means that the Xcloud app will, maybe even the Game Pass app will just be pre-installed on Samsung phones.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Like that'll be like, hey, I got my new Galaxy. Oh, look, there's an Xbox app right there. Because I see some people saying, well, does that mean Xcloud is only going to work on Samsung phones? I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. Of course not. Right? But I was also thinking,
like, again, what Microsoft wants for that.
Maybe it also means that Samsung will make or allow an Xcloud app on their TVs, their smart TVs.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that.
So those are the things that I thought of, like what that partnership could entail. Now, is Samsung also, they have anything to do with like 5G stuff or no?
Samsung make 5G phones, but I don't know. It's like they don't do 5G hardware, I don't think. Like antennas and stuff. That's more Huawei, so they'd need to like partner with Huawei for that sort of stuff. But then I don't know.
Yeah,
that's getting a bit complicated.
Because I had a few people ask me what the Samsung partnership meant, and I just off the top of my head, that was the two things. Like it will just come pre-installed on the phone, and that maybe there'll be xCloud apps on smart TVs that Samsung makes. So maybe.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely logical. Because they also did that whole QLED that QLED promotion for Xbox 2, like the QLED TVs. Which, by the way, I love my QLED.
You love
this.
I love my OLED.
This isn't a Samsung sponsorship statement, but I do love my QLED. And I do love my Galaxy phone, and I do love my Galaxy Watch. And Samsung make a lot of great stuff. And Samsung, if you want to, have an affiliate deal with me, just reach out. Wouldn't that be great? Xbox 2 sponsored by
Xbox. How about Xbox 2 sponsored by Xbox?
I don't know. That might violate the journalistic integrity of the show.
You know what's funny? Well, I need to shout out Aaron for the super chat. He says Samsung wanted their phones to be legitimized, and Microsoft wants to reach more. Which that's probably true. Is I get emails all the time about companies wanted to sponsor videos and do all this stuff, right? The one that I always get is for Raid Shadow Legends, right?
What is that?
It's that mobile game, which I haven't played it. I don't know anything about it, but I get emails weekly of them offering me large sums of money to do an ad, right?
Oh, do it, man. For the podcast, the split 50-50.
But it was just I sit there and I'm just I don't know. And I was
Xbox 2, sponsored by... I've forgotten the name of the game already.
Xbox 2, sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. But
Shadow. You've just done it without getting paid for it.
Yeah, well, no, but they want you... Shout out to James for the super chat. He says, great podcast as always. Keep it up, fellas. Thank you, James. It's why can't a game that I really look forward to spot hey Rand, we're Xbox. We really enjoy your channel. Ori 2 wants to sponsor a video.
No, Rand. You know what it could be? It could be Ubisoft hitting you up to sponsor that mobile game with Splinter Cell guy in it. What's his name? I can't remember.
Sam Fisher.
The character's so boring. I can just never remember.
So speaking of that, I totally forgot to put this down. Did you see that they announced a Prince of Persia game? A brand new Prince of Persia game?
Wait, what? Really?
You didn't see this? Yeah, it's a Prince of Persia game, but
That's so weird.
But it's a Prince. But it's
dream about Prince of Persia the other day.
But it's Prince of Persia VR escape room.
What?
Yeah, you didn't see this announcement? Go on Google right now. Go on Google and type in.
I don't even want to.
Type in Prince of Persia.
I don't want to.
Escape room. So they announced it early this week. You know what my fear is, Jazz? You know what my deepest, darkest fear is?
So Splinter Cell VR.
So here's what I think is going to happen. Ubisoft says they got 5 games coming by March of next year, right? 3 of them we know about: Rainbow Six Siege Quarantine, Gods and Monsters, and Watch Dogs Legions. And there's 2 other AAA games, right? One of them obviously is Assassin's Creed. So what's the other one? The other one is most likely Far Cry 6, right? Where's Splinter Cell? But now that they've announced this Prince of Persia game that is an escape room VR game, Jazz, what if they bring back Splinter Cell, but it's VR, a VR escape room with Sam Fisher
I'd love
or
it.
Something?
I would love it.
I'm sure you would.
I hope they do it, and they call it Splinter Cell Rand Edition. That'd be great.
It's my deepest, darkest fear. My deepest, darkest fear is that Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell comes back, but it's something like that. It's oh God, no. Yeah, but I guess my original point was why can't good games be hey, Ori, we love you, Rand. We know you like us. We'll sponsor a video. Or hey, Doom here, Doom Eternal. They
never really do those kind of sponsorships.
Yeah, they don't need to. They don't really need to.
It's always those lame mobile games.
Yeah, pretty much. But then it's also products. There's this one that it was a significant amount of money that made me raise my eyebrows. I was okay, and it was the company didn't even have a website, and I didn't even know what the product was. And I'm oh well, sounds, you know what I mean? I get so much stuff, and half of it I think is just phishing attempts, or they're trying to get my account or something. You know what I mean? So I look through it, and it's maybe I could read one. It just
do it on the podcast. So I'll do it, man. I'll pay me. I need some money.
I'm gonna read one of these.
I'm poor.
I get this stuff all the time.
Let's practice right now. If you do it, imagine Kid Smooth wanted you to do an ad read for his YouTube channel.
An ad read for my YouTube channel.
For Kids Moves YouTube channel.
Damn it! Where is this one that that I got the other day? Which, okay, here we go. So this guy goes, "Hello, I'm Ivan, co-founder of Fenzor Company. I want to offer ads. It can be 2 types, pre-roll or full video." So I don't even know. So this guy wants to say, I want to offer ads and it can be 2 types, pre-roll or full video. I don't even know what the company is. You'll need to create ad by yourself. Okay. Payment depends on how well you make the ad.
Wow.
I want to offer $650 to $2,000 for each video. PayPal or your card. Interested in my offer? Question mark. Like, what do you mean? What's your offer? Like, I don't get it. Like, what do you want me to make? Like, what's your company?
Yeah.
And I searched their company and I couldn't find their company anywhere. Like,
that's got to be a phishing thing.
Of
right?
course. So like I said, I get so many of these things. It's ridiculous. You know?
I actually got one from a pretty reputable company recently. I maybe should. I don't know why podcast has suddenly turned into sponsorship deals podcast, but marketing tips with Jez and Ran. I don't know, but like, I don't know. Maybe it's something we could do in the future. And then if we do get sponsorship, maybe we could do like legitimate giveaways for like consoles and stuff like that one day.
So we got a super chat from Sovereign. He says, "Give me another Full Spectrum Warrior." That was a pretty good game. So, if you haven't guessed, I mean, that's probably end of the show. But if you do have some questions since we've been gone the last couple weeks, make sure you type them now. And if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button. Follow me and Jez on Twitter. I got a new whole like overlay coming for the podcast. Sean LeBrie's making one. I didn't tell you this, Jez, did I?
Oh, I don't think so.
Sean LeBrie. So I have Sean LeBrie making us a pretty cool overlay for the podcast. So when people watch on YouTube, they can do that. So shout out to Sean. He's also making me an intro for my channel. So I'll have an intro pretty soon for my videos. So he's working on that. And he does such incredible work.
He's a talented guy.
He's very, very talented. So if you're listening to this later, we appreciate you on Google Play or iTunes, wherever you want to check out the show. And if you're listening to this, obviously, on demand on YouTube, enjoy the gameplay, all that great stuff. And we're gonna answer some questions. And we got one from Face. He wants to know, Randy Jez, I don't. Sony wants to take a hit on PS5. No company does. 1 million PS5 sold is $50 million loss at $399, not including retail, shipping, etc. What do you guys think? Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and it wouldn't be a $50 loss. If the BOM's $450, it probably means the system needs to be $499. So you're probably looking at a $100 loss. So like a $100 loss, and you produce how many consoles before you can cut the price? Say it's 100. Say it's what, 15 million consoles, Jez? So now you got 15 million consoles that you're selling at a $100 loss. That is what, like, how much is that? $5 billion? If I'm doing just math.
For what? And for what? Like games that you could have sold on PlayStation 4 anyway?
Well, so that's the thing. It's like, the question is, do you sell at cost or maybe lose a couple dollars, but start making money immediately?
These consoles are iterative. They're luxury items. They cannot be sold at a loss because the whole point of them is the hardware. Like, it's not like there's going to be exclusive games on them.
Well, the PlayStation's going to have exclusive games.
But, like, not enough to warrant.
Well, I mean, we already know Godfall is exclusive. And I've already heard of about a few other exclusive PS5 games. So, PlayStation 5 is going to be games that the only place to play them on console is the PlayStation 5. And now they might come to PC, but that's a different story. But
oh, don't say that, Rand. You're going to be in trouble again.
No, I'm not talking about Sony's first party. I'm talking like Godfall is PS5 and PC, right? That's what I mean. I'm saying Sony has also bought a bunch of other games for the PlayStation 5 launch and made them exclusive to the PlayStation 5 because I don't think they have many first party titles launching day one. I think there's maybe going to be one or two. Maybe just one. And I think it's just going to be Gran Turismo 7. I don't think Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is until 2021. So I'm saying like there will be exclusive PlayStation 5 games. Is what I'm trying to say, at least.
Fair enough.
Let's see.
But it's like that like unless they're like high margin games too, will they offset the the losses unless they're a Fortnite or something like that?
I mean,
But the whole market's changed.
Froggy wants to know, do you guys think Sony will launch the PS5 with their own Game Pass equivalent? I mean, they have PlayStation Now, which is essentially their Game Pass equivalent now that you can download games, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the library is as good because it doesn't have as many newer games in it, but that's what people want. But I mean, it does have a ton of games. Yeah, most of it is PS3 games, but no, it's their Game Pass equivalent, and they're trying to get better at it. They're starting to add like their games to it for an extended, for like a limited time period. But I would expect them to lean more heavily into PlayStation Now for next gen for sure. Isaac wants to know, is Master Chief coming to Super Smash Bros? Give us the scoop. I haven't heard anything.
Shout out to Isaac.
I haven't heard anything. Like unlike Banjo, which I was told was 100% happening. I haven't heard anything about Master Chief coming to Smash. But that doesn't necessarily mean it will or it won't. I'm just saying I personally haven't heard anything about it. Have you heard something, Jez?
No.
No? Okay.
No. The whole like rumor mill about Smash Brothers characters and stuff like that, it cracks me up, man. Like people are so hyped about that.
Let's see here. What else? What other questions we got? Albert wants to know, hey guys, do you think Rod is leaving because he wants creative freedom? I mean, if he wants to do new things, can he do new things at Coalition?
Well, if you want creative freedom, the last place you go is Activision Blizzard. Come on. And like he's going to be working on Diablo, which is a pretty established franchise, without a huge amount of wiggle room to play around with.
Yeah.
So, and a rabidly passionate fan base. Like the fact they announced Diablo Immortal, which was like off message about what Diablo is supposed to be. The amount of flack they took for that. Like, if you want creative freedom, Diablo franchise is probably not what you. Like, if you want creative freedom, you probably like go off and found like a new indie company like those BioWare chaps did. I can't remember what the studio's called now, but did you see this, Ran? Like a bunch of ex-BioWare people went off and found a new company, and Drew, who wrote Mass Effect 1, was saying that BioWare was too corporate now.
I mean, you could totally tell that, yeah, because and the other bit of news was that they're revamping Anthem, right?
Pardon, sorry? Revamping Anthem.
Yeah, which who cares?
Didn't we talk about that on the show?
We did. I think it was mentioned before, but it was just like whatever. But no, I did see Drew's post, basically that because of their success, he loved it in the beginning, and then eventually BioWare became too corporate, and they started making games based on market research, which is, I can imagine that's probably not. Probably not the best way to go about things, right?
Yep.
So I think Rod. I mean, who really knows? I mean, like, we're all speculating here. I mean, it could be he just wanted to do something different. Like I don't know. Like immediately you think, well, he's leaving. This must mean there's problems at the Coalition or Xbox, and that may not necessarily be true, or maybe it could be true. It could just mean that like I want to do something different. I've done Gears for X amount of years. Like I want to do something else. I don't know. I mean, we'll probably never know unless he comes out and says, "Hey, it was for these reasons." But maybe Mike Ybarra knows what he's doing. Maybe Mike Ybarra is like. Obviously, Mike Ybarra must think that Rod does great work if he wants Rod to helm the Diablo franchise.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm low-key, like, as a Blizzard fan, I'm kind of happy that Mike is, like, in a high position there, because I know that Mike is a massive fan of Blizzard too. And, like, I also know that Mike he's willing to criticize a company when it's not doing the right sort of stuff.
He definitely.
So I think Mike being there's probably the best thing that could have happened to Blizzard.
He definitely seems to criticize his former employer a lot on Twitter. He doesn't really hold back anymore, does he?
I just hope that he does that in Activision boardroom meetings too.
Yeah.
There's a lot I would like to criticize Blizzard for right now.
Isaac also says, "Hey, you didn't know of Cuphead content or anything, just Banjo stuff." I didn't know anything about Cuphead. All I knew was about Banjo. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Master Chief was in Smash. Like if they were to announce that at the next Nintendo Direct, which I don't know if you saw, Jez, Nintendo fans are really angry that there hasn't been a new Nintendo Direct announced. Huh? It's been like it's apparently been the longest time ever since between Directs or something. I was reading, and like Nintendo fans are getting
has no games now.
Well, Nintendo fans are getting a little antsy. They're like making up all this stuff, and then combine that with like Sony not announcing the PlayStation 5 press review. Remember how many people were saying there was going to be a press event in February for PlayStation?
Yeah, what happened to that?
What happened to that? Weren't there a lot of people saying that was like a fact and gonna happen, and now it didn't? I don't know. I wonder what
you mean these anonymous forum insiders that don't put their livelihoods on the line?
Yeah, well, some of them aren't so anonymous. Some of them have YouTube channels and tweet on Twitter. You know what I mean? Can you imagine being wholly 100% wrong on that and still be trying to like come across as like, I'm legit? You know what I mean?
That's easy when you're not accountable to a boss or anything, isn't it?
I guess so. I mean, I guess there's that. And the funny thing is,
if I screw up, I get in trouble. Like if a YouTuber screws up, no one cares.
And the funny thing is though, Jazz, remember when I told you like beginning of January, I had heard that there wasn't going to be a PlayStation event, but I didn't believe it because I just was like, well, there's too many people saying it's true. And, like, the person who told me was, like, super reputable, but I was like, nah, maybe he doesn't know. Well, he clearly knew, back in early January. And I was just like, nah. It's definitely interesting because they put the PlayStation 5 website out, and they're like, Sony's basically like, we're not ready to talk about the PlayStation 5 anytime soon. It's like, well, when are you? Like, this thing's supposed to come out at the end of the year. When are you going to talk about the PlayStation 5 again? Are they really just going to let Microsoft do a reveal event and then E3 and then eventually talk about the PlayStation 5? Like, what's going on there, Jez? What do you think?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But I tell you one thing that I do know is that I don't care.
You don't care? Okay, fair enough.
It's not Xbox.
Dark Times wants to know.
It's like we talked about before, like how like there's literally nothing Sony could do to win me over. Because I'm locked in digitally. I'm locked in.
But you can still get a PlayStation and enjoy the games they put on it. Like, I got a PlayStation 4 Pro. And
I want to play Last of Us 2, but that's coming out on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, true. And it's probably going to be updated for the PS5 as well at some point.
Yeah, but I'll just play in SD and have, maybe I'll get a PlayStation 5 when Last of Us 3 comes out, if ever.
Yeah. So Dark Times wants to know, Rand, will Ori beat Dreams on Metascore? I mean, I don't know. Like, I did see Kofi and BG make that bet with J-Main, and I have a lot of faith in Ori to be a great game, but Media Molecule, like, I don't know, like, you're comparing Ori to basically I'm gonna say this right, like an app. Like, it's Dreams is more about the potential of what you can do than about the game itself, right? It's like, look at all these amazing things you can make, and I think a lot of people, when they play that, they're just enamored with the idea of, like, you can build anything. And that really kind of does come across strongly with Dreams. So I'm not surprised.
Do you remember Project Spark?
Well, this is on a totally different level than Project Spark. So I'm not surprised that Dreams is averaging the Metascore that it is. Like, currently it's at like 91, but you also look, it doesn't have a lot of like ratings, right? Because it's tough to rate a game that is essentially a platform, because that's what it is. It's a platform for user generated content. And so how do you actually review that? Because I'm sure, just like with any user-generated stuff, some of it's going to be good, some of it can be great, but the vast majority is probably just going to be trash, right? So it's like, so I would imagine it's really tough to review, and there aren't a lot of reviews for it, and it doesn't really seem like Sony is marketing it very much. So here's what I'll say about Ori. I think Ori will definitely have a higher score than the first one. So the first one's like an 88 or an 89. I'm expecting a 90. I don't know how far into 90s you get. Maybe a 92, maybe a 93 if it's fantastic. So I'm right there at about 91 or 92. They could they could essentially be at the same score. I think Ori will have more reviews because I think Microsoft knows that a lot of people are looking forward to that, so they'll send it out to a lot of people. Whereas like Dreams is, I don't know, Dreams is kind of like low key. And like I said, it's more of like an application and a platform, a future platform. Like imagine the games that are going to be on Dreams 2 years from now. You know, when people really kind of get into what you can make, and see where that's at. But Froggy wants to know: do you think Microsoft is actually buying Asobo Studios? I don't think so. Jez, do you think so?
I think there's a possibility they could explore buying it because I've heard something interesting about Flight Simulator recently. I've heard that they might actually be developing a separate version of it for businesses. Believe it or not,
really,
to actually train pilots. So there might be like a business to business, potential with Flight Simulator and those kind of games and that kind of technology, possibly through HoloLens and stuff like that. So I've heard that Flight Simulator might come to VR and HoloLens because of that reason.
That's cool.
So I don't know.
So
I think like if Microsoft can make a lot of money on simulation games for businesses, because that was one of the things HoloLens was always supposed to be. It was always supposed to be this sort of device you could use to train people. Like they show you what to do, and you see it on your screen in your eyes in augmented reality and stuff like that. And apparently there's going to be some sort of flight simulator stuff for that for businesses. So if Microsoft can make like big money selling that stuff to businesses and aviation companies and stuff like that, I can see like Asobo, maybe joining them for that on that basis. I don't know.
Isaac Walker wants to. He says, "Do you think any Xbox exclusives will come to the Nintendo Switch?"
I will say, like, if Master Chief ends up in Smash, I think like there needs to be some Halo game hitting Switch for that type.
I think Microsoft wants their games on Nintendo Switch, and I think they I'm not going to use the word desperately. I think they really want Xcloud on the Nintendo Switch. So, I think they do want Xbox games on Nintendo Switch via Xcloud, because that way they can say, well, it's still exclusive to the Xbox platform because you need to get it through Xcloud, which is our kind of streaming platform. But I do think I do think at some point this is tough because I fully know that they want Xcloud on the Switch, but I don't know if Nintendo wants it on the Switch.
What if they did like a stripped down version that only had Xbox exclusives on it?
That could be something that works. Like, and essentially Microsoft would be using the Nintendo Switch as a portable Xbox player that they didn't have to make. And Nintendo will be like, okay, well, maybe a bunch of Xbox gamers who don't have a Nintendo Switch now buy the Nintendo Switch. I don't know, but like, I really do think that Microsoft wants their games on the Switch through Xcloud. Will it happen? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And Ninja Gamer wants to know, what would you like to see from Ori 2 personally? I like to see improved combat. The improved combat does look good, because in Ori 1 it was just kind of, you had the ball of light that would randomly, it would attack enemies. But it definitely seems like they've improved the combat a lot in this one, which is going to be...
Yeah, Ori has like a range of weapons now. I saw a sword, I saw a bow and arrow.
There's like a hammer, I think.
Yeah, so Ori has like weapons and stuff now. Yeah. And I bet that has like Metroidvania aspects, like you need a certain weapon to open certain doors and you have to backtrack. I love Metroidvania games.
All that stuff. And then it seems to have like a bigger focus on maybe boss fights, because you didn't really have boss fights per se in Ori. You had kind of escape sequences because the first game was strictly more about the momentum and mobility. So everything was kind of built along the idea of like move, and all you had to do was press a button to attack, and your attack would just target the enemy. This one definitely seems more like we're keeping the momentum and the mobility, but now there's actual combat and now actual boss fights that maybe just won't be escape sequences, because we've seen the boss fight with the spider, a boss fight with the wolf, a boss fight against like a big fish. Definitely seems like they're going for like more set piece moments and stuff too, which is going to be pretty interesting, I think.
And there's that whole like multiplayer trial system too. Did you see that?
Yes, there's the where you can compete with the friends or whatever. Yeah, it's that's
like Trials,
that's pretty interesting.
Trials Fusion or whatever. I actually played that. I can't remember if it was at Gamescom or E3, but it was really fun, really addictive.
So last kind of thing we're going to talk about here before we get out, the coronavirus. There are some people worried that it's going to delay the next-gen consoles, Jazz. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. They haven't... It's hard to tell because China's sort of obscuring a lot of the information about how severe it actually is. Like, if coronavirus gets out of control in, like, countries that have, supply chain relevancy to next-gen consoles, then yeah, I could see it impacting it. But we don't know how contained it is yet. There's not really enough hard information about what's going on there.
Yeah.
Mobile World Congress got cancelled. Like, if you don't know, Mobile World Congress is like the E3 of mobile technology and phones. So like Android Central and Windows Central. We usually go every year and we check out, like, that's actually how I got noticed. I covered Mobile World Congress for the new Windows Phone a few years ago. And Windows Central noticed me because I was there. Senpai noticed me. But they've totally cancelled the whole show. The whole show was cancelled because of coronavirus. And that's devastating to the Barcelona economy because, like, however many tens of thousands of people are just not going now because they cancelled the whole thing. So it's definitely having an impact on technology scene. It just, I don't know, will it be contained by E3 time or will it be contained by the time all the manufacturing starts? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it could have an impact. Yeah, I do.
I think it could, and then I think if the consoles need to get delayed, they need to get delayed because obviously making sure the virus doesn't spread is more important than the consoles. Yeah. So so that's the podcast for this week. Sorry we had to do it on a Saturday, but keep in mind we are moving the podcast to Wednesdays now because Jez can no longer do it on Thursdays. And if we can't make Wednesday for whatever reason, whether it's, I have something going on or Jez, then we'll try to do it on Friday. So Wednesday, this upcoming week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Me and Jez greatly appreciate everyone being here on the Saturday. And I guess we'll see you in a few short days on Wednesday. I wonder what we'll be able to talk about in a podcast. Someone please release some news, PlayStation or Xbox, so we can talk about it. So
this podcast was sponsored by randomcrappymobile game.com.
So thanks guys, and we'll see you next week.